you say? What do you know? It's the full Monte Super Bowl extravaganza show. It is Sunday, February 7th, 2021. I am your host, Monte Perez, a.k.a. The Sports Whisperer. I want to thank everyone for tuning in last week. 35 states across the country watched the full Monte Sports Show live on YouTube. We are trending number 3, still trying to work our way up. People ask me, what does that mean, Monty? What does trending number 3 mean? I'm going to show you right here. When you type in sports shows on YouTube, as you can see right here, we were trending 3rd, 4th, and 5th this week. I want to give a very, before we get to our drinking game, a very special happy birthday to my brother Peter. Happy birthday, Pete. We're going to have people come over, have a ton of food, watch the game. So hopefully he will have a very happy birthday to my older brother, Peter. Listen, guys, I am super excited for this show. I am super excited for the guests that are coming on. Every week, we have the best guests all across the country, and this week is no exception. In about 10 minutes, we are going to have Chris Roseglue and Anna Lewis talk about the Saints and the Titans. Then we're going to have the Nuts and Bolts Sports Crew come on. Ariana Prasad. We're going to have Jeff Barnes, and we're going to have Keith Richards talk about the Seahawks, the Cowboys, and the Denver Broncos. And at the top of the hour, George Lopez, Jared Milligan, Rico, Show Me the Money Graziano. We're going to have a whole bunch of topics, NFL roundtable discussion, and of course, we're going to break down the big Super Bowl game. Obviously, today, every major pregame show, just going to focus on that. We do something differently here. Yes, we're going to get to all the key points and who wins today's game, but we're going to give fans who aren't necessarily rooting for either one of these teams, they don't have any real desire to watch this game. We're going to give the fans who love football an opportunity to still talk about your team and talk about the NFL. Now, normally I start the show with an opening rant filled with comedic stories about my life. But since we have so many guests on and we're going to try to get this show, keep it the same time as we always do, but just jam-pack you with knowledge and NFL chat, we're going to start with the good, the bad, and the ugly. So let's start with the good. Sarah Thomas will make history as the first woman to referee a Super Bowl when Thomas is going to be part of the 7-person crew officiating and working as the down judge at the Super Bowl in Tampa Bay. Executive Vice President of Football Operations Troy Vincent Sr. called the group of referees the best of the best. Sarah Thomas has made history again as the first female Super Bowl official. Her elite performance and commitment to excellence has earned her this position, and it is well deserved. Look, I love having women on my show. I love having women in sports. I've said this for about 2 years now. I wish Becky Hammonds would be the head coach of the New York Knicks. Becky Hammonds is an assistant coach out of the San Antonio Spurs. It's only a matter of time before we start seeing women, like we said. We're going to see it today with referees, more women coaches. So I welcome this, and great job by the NFL, and great job for her. Can't be easy in a male-driven, testosterone-laden football field being a female referee, but she has risen to the challenge, and she is now getting what she deserves, and that is a shot at reffing in the Super Bowl. So that's the good. Let's move to the bad. Brett Favre said on Deshaun Watson wanting to be traded. Deshaun Watson is the quarterback from the Houston Texans, played for Clemson, went to 2 national championship games, lost in his sophomore year, won in his junior year against Nick Saban. Brett Favre basically said, listen, we get paid a certain amount of money to do a job. Just do it and let the chips fall where they may. Brett Favre said, and I quote, "We make too much money to have an opinion." Brett, are you kidding me right now? You almost demanded a trade from the Packers to Minnesota because you wanted more money. Okay? Brett Favre, who's had a slew of off-the-field issues, he was addicted to painkillers. He sent naked text while he was married to New York Jets host in 2010, New York Jets hostess Jen Sturger. Brett, why didn't you let the chips fall where they may when Jen didn't want any part of you? Why did you send nude pictures of yourself to her? Why did you demand a trade when the Packers weren't going to pay you and you threatened to go to Minnesota? Funny how Brett has no problem and actually applauded Tom Brady for leaving New England to go to Tampa. But yet, a black quarterback wants to move and better his situation, and Brett has a problem with that. Again, Brett Favre applauded Tom Brady when he said he was going to Tampa. And now he's saying Deshaun Watson makes too much money to have an opinion? So let me get this straight, Brett. You can have an opinion. A guy on Twitter can have an opinion. But someone who makes a lot of money can't have an opinion. Tom Brady is worth $250 million. He left Tampa Bay. And you love the decision, Brett. You love the decision. You love the decision. But yet, you've made terrible decisions in your life. This is not about Deshaun Watson. This is about Brett Favre's ignorance and hypocrisy where one quarterback can do something and another quarterback can't. Terrible job by Brett Favre. And now, to the ugly. And now, to the ugly. All right, so we all saw this week LeBron James dubbed Courtside Karen. She apologized after during the Lakers-Hawks game. She got kicked out of the game. Juliano Carlos is apologizing for heckling LeBron during the Laker games. She said, about last night, things escalated too quickly. My husband is a huge sport fan. We are passionate people. Sports wouldn't be sports without a little trash talking. Well, let me just say this. I've been to dozens of games in my lifetime. I've never gotten it into with a athlete. There's a difference between trash talking, which I've seen Colin Cowherd do, which I've seen Jack Nicholson do, where I see both parties laughing. This woman said that she told LeBron James that she would beat the you-know-what out of him. Okay, this isn't trash talking. This is delusional. This is delusional. When you go to a sporting event, you have to follow a certain code of conduct. When you're sitting courtside, okay, I've seen players get into it. What are you doing as fans here? Like, what are you doing? No one is there to see this Courtside Karen. You're there to see a basketball game. I despise when fans think that they're there and people care that they're there. Yes, we all want fans to come back because of COVID-19. Yes, we all want fans to be a part of the game. But I don't want – there's a difference between booing. There's a difference between – and threatening to beat the S out of someone. Fan is short for fanatical, okay? Fan is short for fanatical. I will never forget the time a friend of mine went to the Giant game, and they were behind the 50-yard line, and he told me the story about him and his 7-year-old went there early so they could see the Giants warm up in the end zone, and they were screaming at the offensive lineman saying, no one respects you, you guys are trash. And I'm like, this is what you're teaching your son? This is what you like. He's like, no, we made a difference because they rushed. Oh, you made a difference. You motivated the entire team, not a coach. You have no preparation in the game plan. You're not calling the plays, but you teaching your son to heckle professional athletes, that made a difference in their performance that day? This is the same thing with this woman. Let's be real, she says. trash talking. Trash talking should go between the players. It shouldn't happen when you're screaming at LeBron James you're going to beat the hell out of him, and then also taking off your mask and risking spreading a virus to the referees and the security people. She got kicked out, and the only reason she apologized for it is because she got shamed all over social media. So that is the good, the bad, and the ugly. And by the way, in my closing extra point, I'm going to talk about freedom of speech. There is a huge difference between freedom of speech, dissent, and propaganda, and what's happening all over the country now with people saying we're losing freedom of speech. You could say whatever you want, but there are actions for those you have to suffer the consequences for your actions. I could go on this show and just spew racist things, anti-women things, and whatever you want to call it, and there will be actions won't have me on, and maybe I'll get banned from YouTube, and rightly so. There's a difference between opinion, free speech, and I will get into that, in my extra point. Again, we're having the Super Bowl extravaganza show. I want to just remind everyone with our few words that we bring up. We're going to talk about the Saints in a couple minutes. It's Super Bowl Sunday, so you could drink. We're going to bring on Anna Lewis and Chris Rosenglue in about a minute. But first, let's do something we love to do, and that is let's surf the crowd. Let's see what he had. Yeah. Listen, LeBron James should know better, right? He should know better. But there are certain times, and I say this all the time, they're human beings. They're human beings. So, when someone says something really offensive, should they be above it? Yes. And I've seen players go back and forth with people in the stands. But when it gets to a physical altercation where someone is being threatened, then it's just too much. Listen, LeBron James even said, listen, I think they were intoxicated, and that's why it escalated like it did. He said that I'm sure if they didn't have as much to drink, they wouldn't have been so brave. So what we're going to do now is we're going to go through a lot of teams for the NFL. We're going to bring on Chris Rosenglue, who is the writer for The Spun, podcaster for the Saints. We're also going to bring on Anna Lewis, former NCAA defensive coach, host of @SAI Titans Beat. Let's bring both of them on right now. How are you guys today, this Super Bowl Sunday?
Good. How are you, Monte?
I'm doing great. Chris, how are you?
I'm doing well, Monte. Thank you for having me.
All right, Chris, we're going to start with you. We'll get your little Saints background up here, and then we'll switch it to Anna with the Titans background. Have you recovered from the playoff loss, or is this something that we talked about throughout the year, that this team is just not as good as we thought?
No, I actually think that when I go back to the game, it was one of those they lost, and then Monday came, and I was fine. Didn't really bother me. And the reason I say that is because I thought the Saints were actually better than the Buccaneers at almost every single facet of the game, except for quarterback, where you saw Brees threw 3 picks. He just looked completely ready for retirement. So I actually don't think the Saints showed that they were pretenders or anything like that. I think the Saints' problem was it kind of felt like you were just hoping that Drew Brees can turn back the clock for a playoff run, and it just obviously wasn't going to be a thing. So the running game was still strong. The defense played particularly well. 21 of the 30 points were off turnovers for the Bucs. So
yeah.
I was like, that was the main issue for me, Monty. So I didn't think it was anything where I looked back at that game. I was like, man, the Saints got exposed. I think what it showed was that unfortunately was the end of the road for Drew Brees.
Okay, Anna, let's switch gears here. Mike Vrabel, 3 years as a coach, 9-7, 9-7, 11-5, 29-19 in 3 years. I have so many issues with this guy because sometimes his game plan looks so on point. But my take is when they force him out of the running game, it's almost like he doesn't have a plan B. How do you rate Mike Vrabel? Is he a top 10 coach in the NFL?
Yeah, so I think where he's so early in his career, he has the potential to be. I have a lot of respect for Mike, and I am glad that he's in Tennessee. He has one fatal flaw, for lack of a better word, and that's that he won't let go of control. And you see some of those Bill Belichick tendencies. A lot of people compare him to Bill. And I think we saw that a lot, and we talked about it every time I was on the show. We didn't have a defensive coordinator this year. We let somebody, our linebackers coach, Shane Bowen, be like on a trial run. And I'm sorry, but like if that's your tryout and this is the year that you have, you don't get the job. But he got the job. So to me, that's just I think it's more of Mike knows he has control there. And if he would have gone and gotten somebody else, I was advocating for Wade Phillips if he'd be willing to adapt his game plan more to what the strengths of the Titans roster was. But no, I think his issue there is he wants control of everything, especially the defense, because that's where he played and he feels like that's his strong suit. But we saw in Houston that when he was the defensive coordinator there, it wasn't their best defensive year. They had J.J. Watt. And then you see last year where he had a hand in the play calling. And it looked like we were trying to run DP's defense, which had a lot of mask and disguises and all of that. We're trying to run that without the mastermind behind it. And it just didn't work. It looked like we were running around like chickens with our heads cut off.
Yeah,
it was terrible.
No, listen,
I couldn't watch it.
No, it was not a typical Mike Vrabel team. When you think of Mike Vrabel, you think of a tough defense. That defense got exposed often throughout the season. Chris, George brings up a great point. Did Drew Brees, do we know that he played with a torn rotator cuff? And if he did, Chris, isn't that really a selfish act for him? Because as we saw in the second half of the game against the Tampa Bay Bucks, they were putting 10 people on the line of scrimmage, begging him to throw the ball 20 yards down the field.
So apparently the rumor, Monte, and this hasn't been confirmed by anyone from the Saints medical staff, and I kind of don't blame them because then it would come off like, hey, you're not doing your job necessarily, but the rumor is that it was around week 6 or 7, I believe, when they played the Chicago Bears when he hurt that shoulder. And I actually pointed out that on Twitter at the time, he was putting KT tape on his shoulder, and he never does that. And Drew's very routine-based. Like, if he didn't do something one week, he's not going to do it the next week. Like, he sticks to a certain thing. And you saw that the shoulder was banged up. Before he actually had the rib fracture, he was on the injury report for a shoulder injury around that time. So I do wonder if it was there. Now, does it come off as selfish? I do think in some departments it does, but I also think then we'd have to do 50-50 where some blame is on Drew, some blame is on Sean, because there's no way that Sean doesn't know that his quarterback is dealing with a torn rotator cuff if that's the case. So what it comes down to me is that I think there was some type of agreement here that, hey, my shoulder can't get much worse than it is right now.
Right.
Like, all right, well, this is your last rodeo. Let's just go through it and see what happens. Now, there's an unknown factor, and I always do wonder if this comes into play. We don't know what Jameis Winston looks like in the Saints offense yet, so I think that the Saints weren't just willing to say, all right, let's just sit Drew, because one, it's Drew Brees, and two, you don't know what you have in Jameis Winston yet. I know everyone thinks he's going to get fixed, but we have to see it first before we believe it. And then with Taysom Hill, the Saints were, they're happy with his dual threat capabilities, but over the course of the week, I mean, he just kept getting worse as a passer, just was not getting better. So sadly, it left the Saints with, as a passer, Drew Brees being their best option. And I think because Taysom didn't play that Sunday against the Bucs, they couldn't do all those special packages. So they said, do we roll with the guy who's probably playing in his last game, or do we try and throw in Jameis? We could go back and look at what they should have done, but I think this falls on the two of them, Brees and Sean, in terms of figuring out how do you handle this situation better. Okay,
Anna, listen, this defense, you just talked about it. They were last on third down. This team could not get off the field. Gave up a first down 51% of the time, 28th in total yards, giving up 407 per game. What are you going to do this offseason? There's rumors that J.J. Watt wants to leave Houston. There's rumors about potential trades out there. Are you going to go heavy in the draft on defense? What does this team need to do to improve a defense that for the first 2 years is pretty good?
I think they have to decide, do they want to build in free agency or do they want to build in the draft? And from what I've seen in the projected cap space and all of that, I don't think we can build the defense that we need in free agency. I don't think we can afford them. So I have said all offseason so far that if Clowney wants to come back and the price is right, I take him back. He made an impact. And a lot of people want to say he didn't, but a lot of that also had to do with the way that they were running the guys up front. Again, I think you and I talked about it, but you had Jeffrey Simmons, who is a true interior 3-tech lineman, running stunts to the exterior, and then having Jadeveon Clowney come through up the A-gap. It doesn't even make sense. So if you can figure that out and have those guys running where they need to and letting the interior guys collapse the pocket so that Clowney can come off the edge and really be effective there, I think that is going to be effective. I like the idea of JJ Watt. I don't think JJ Watt's going to happen. People are saying, oh, the reunion of Mike Vrabel and JJ Watt, but we also said that about Tom Brady, and look where Tom Brady's sitting today. So I don't think we'll get JJ, but there's a couple guys in the draft that I'd like to see.
Anna, someone just texted coffee in America with that. Someone just texted me. It looks like you make the best coffee in America in your kitchen. Are you a big coffee drinker then? They really like your setup in the kitchen.
Oh, y'all are sweet. I am okay with it. Like I drink it when I want, but I'm more of a tea person now. I'm trying not to drink so much caffeine.
All right, Chris, listen, the Saints have several players that are due for a hefty pay increase. Is the priority right away Marshawn Lattimore? Where do you go with the cap money? I know a lot of this money is in these two guys right here. So what are they going to do?
Well, the weird thing is they have no choice but to either extend or trade Lattimore. I think the former is the more likely in extending because Lattimore's cap number is a little bit too high going into this year of his rookie deal. So the Saints are obviously in cap hell, as we like to call it down here in the Houdat Nation, but extending Lattimore, you can alter his cap number for this particular season, and in doing so, free up some space. So I think Lattimore's at the priority. I think the Saints most likely lose a guy like Trey Hendrickson, who is tied for the league in sacks. So that'll be a big blow to them. Then it comes down to, can they keep a guy like Marcus Williams, their talented safety? Obviously remember for the Minnesota Miracle, but nonetheless still a very good player. So with Lattimore, I think the Saints want to keep him around. I know that there's some questions about his motor. Sometimes he's not always on his A game, but he's the best cornerback the Saints have had since the 2009 season. So they're going to try their best to keep him in there. And it also does help that he would free up cap space in doing so.
Chris, you're the general manager. Lattimore is the number one priority, right? I mean, it's a no-brainer. I mean, you don't want to lose someone who pressures the quarterback, but if you got to choose him, right?
Oh, absolutely, because I'll say this about Trey Hendrickson. I think he's an outstanding player and just had a really good season. Trey Hendrickson's only had one good season. Lattimore's been pretty good for the Saints ever since he got there in 2017. So I think if you have to weigh between the two of them, I think you go with the known commodity over the guy who could be, hey, I played really well in a contract year and had a little flash in the pan type season.
Okay, Anna, listen, I have this argument all the time about A.J. Brown. 70 catches, 11 touchdowns. I don't think he's a top 10 wide receiver. I think he's maybe 11 or 12. I personally would take DK Metcalf over him. Is he a top 10 wide receiver? And let me just say this. For me not to call him around 11 or 12.
Yeah, so for me, I think AJ has the potential to be top 10. I think you're probably right. He is sitting around 11 or 12. I wouldn't take DK over him right now.
Really?
With the year that he had. And DK was on my fantasy football team, so I was rooting for him all year long. But AJ really showed some qualities that you want in a wide receiver. He's confident. He's strong. Those yards after contact are insane. And he and Corey Davis bounced off of each other quite a bit this year. It's funny that y'all were talking about the two options you have down in New Orleans. What do you do there? We're kind of in the same situation. Do you put your faith in AJ, maybe draft another receiver and let him be wide receiver 1 and let Corey Davis go? Or do you pay Corey Davis? And Corey Davis did the same thing. He had a really good year this year in his contract year, but he hasn't been super consistent. And I agree with Kyle. That's one of my buddies over at the Say It Again Network. If AJ Brown had a different quarterback, he would be top 10 all day because he makes the plays. He doesn't get the opportunities. And his game doesn't hinge off Derrick Henry or anything like that. And I think Ryan Tannehill's does. But if you had him with, say we got Tom Brady last year, we would have been having a different conversation right now.
It's amazing because I went week to week with Rico Graziano, who does our handicap and our betting expert and our fantasy guru. And the one thing I would always say is if DK Metcalf has a good week, the following week it's Tyler Lockett. They always alternated. Always alternated. And I'm going to ask you guys both questions about your wide receivers. Listen, Chris, we'll go back to you. I desperately think that they need a number 2 wide receiver. Emmanuel Sanders is a good third, fourth option. Okay, when you look at what Tampa Bay has, their third or second option would almost be a number 1 option on a lot of teams. What are they doing at the wide receiver position for the Saints next year?
Yeah, I think for the Saints, if you're looking for a wide receiver, I honestly could see a scenario where Emmanuel Sanders gets cut. I know that sounds crazy, but they do need to free up cap space, and I do wonder if the Saints say, hey, if he's not our wide receiver 2 and we paid him to be our wide receiver 2, it does free up $6 million to cut him, so I do think that's an option that's on the table for New Orleans. And for Sanders, I mean, there's a bunch of teams that would take him, so it would work out for him. So I think there's 2 options here. I think the Saints can go after maybe a Curtis Samuel who Might be a little bit out of their budget, so I don't know if they'll be able to get him, but it would be a nice move where you also take away from a division rival because Curtis, you can do a lot of things. And the one thing about Sean is he loves versatility. My realistic option, though, is they get a wide receiver later in the draft. This is another stacked wide receiver class. A lot of great players out there. I would love to see them in day 2, maybe get a guy like Dez Fitzpatrick from Louisville. I think he's a game changer at wide receiver. Just had a really good week at the Senior Bowl down in Mobile. So I like Dez Fitzpatrick there. And what I think will be what will actually happen, though, I think the Saints are just going to dip right back into the undrafted rookie free agent market. And the reason I say that is back-to-back years, you had Deontay Harris and then Marquez Callaway. Harris, if he can stay healthy, he's a game changer. People saw against the Chicago Bears in the playoffs what he can do, and they saw on the punt returns before he got injured against the Bucs what he's capable of doing. And then you had Marquez Callaway, a rookie wide receiver who was not drafted from Tennessee, had a really good season. So I wonder if the Saints dip their toes back in that water. I would prefer for them to draft a wide receiver with a day 2 pick. I think they could get a quality player at that number, and they need to get more explosive. That's a big issue with the Saints. The Saints need to be able to beat teams over the top. That's something they're not doing. So I would rather them dip into the draft market because they don't got a lot of money to spend right now in free agency. Right. So I don't know where they're going to find that guy.
Listen, and those rookie contracts we know for quarterbacks are great for the first couple of years. You could get a stud. I agree with you. I just look at what Tampa has done. They have 5 wide receivers. What the Chiefs have done, their 3rd or 4th option are absolute game breakers. So they need more quality depth. Same question to you, Anna. Look, Corey Davis, 65 catches. Is he a number 2 wide receiver, or do you have to get someone more explosive, more consistent? Because what we're seeing now in the NFL is the teams that are in, you need guys who are going to get 75 to 90 catches as your number 1 and as your number 2.
Yeah, so for me, and I kind of touched on it earlier, Corey Davis had 1 good year, and he was okay the rest of his 3 or 4 years. So Corey Davis was never somebody that I was super excited about. So I think we let him go. I think his price is probably going to be too high because he did have a good year. But again, if his price is right, I think he's a great wide receiver too here. What I would like to see on the other side of AJ is to have somebody that's quicker and a little bit more. AJ is still explosive, but he's bigger, so he's a little bit slower than a lot of wide receivers. So I'd like to see them pick up. It is a wide receiver heavy class. I'd like to see us pick somebody up in the draft, and we've got a couple ideas of who, but I'd like to see somebody quick, explosive that can get those really long ones, knowing that AJ is going to get yards after contact and break a few tackles, which you got to love coming out of a wide receiver.
Listen, I love AJ going over the middle, no doubt. Same with DK. They're big, they're powerful. They're not as fast as maybe the elite wide receivers, but they still can break a tackle and go. We've seen it go 70, 80, 90 yards. So yeah, I agree with that. All right. Listen, Michael Thomas was not healthy all year long. He had 100+ catches, set the record last year. Is there something else that we're not knowing, or was it strictly just an injury? Because we talked about this earlier in the season when Drew Brees came out and made that comment about standing for the flag. Michael Thomas was very, very vocal and expressing his displeasure with what Drew said. So do you think there was more of a rift here, or do you think it was just an injury?
I think it was 2 things. I think the main thing was an injury. When it comes out after that playoff game that he has to immediately have surgery on his ankle and, he ripped through a couple of ligaments. I don't think that's encouraging, obviously. And then you see that he didn't even have a catch in the playoff game. That's obviously not what you want to see. So I think part of it's the injury. The other part, and this is a big one, it's not Drew Brees, what Drew Brees said. It's what Drew Brees' arm can do. And because Drew Brees was not able to stretch the field, I think the Saints became very limited because – interestingly enough, the 2 100-yard receiving games that Michael Thomas had this past season, and there weren't many, obviously, but the 2 that he had were with Taysom Hill. Why is that important? Taysom Hill was able to stretch the field a little bit more with his arm. Now, I don't think Taysom Hill's a great passer, but Taysom Hill's able to throw 20, 25 yards down the field, which expands Michael Thomas's route tree. So a lot of times when Drew Brees is in there, you don't have the threat of Michael Thomas running past you for 15, 20 yards because is the quarterback going to hit him? That's a question that you need to see get answered. And the answer most of the time was no. So I think some of it comes into the injury, and another part goes into the fact that they didn't have a quarterback who can stretch the field and let Michael Thomas run more routes than a quick out or a slant. And as for the potential rift between Thomas and Brees, Thomas put a pretty nice sentimental post on Instagram a couple of days ago.
Very nice. Yeah.
Leading many people to believe that this was the end of the road for Drew and Mike's going to keep pushing through. So I don't think there's any rift there. Now, I do think Mike at the time was pissed, but Mike is a guy who, man, he is a dog. This is a dude who punched a teammate in the face in practice. So there's no bigger competitor than him.
Yeah, listen, Anna, one of the things that really disturbed me is that when the Titans got down, they took Derrick Henry out of the games. And I don't understand this because I've seen him break screen passes for 80 yards, 90 yards. It's almost like when they take him out, when they're down, they take him out. Can he be an effective route runner and receiver out of the backfield? I'm not going to say he's going to be the next Alvin Kamara, but it's almost like they tip their hand when he comes out of the game. It's predictable. We know they're going to throw.
Yeah, I really hate that they do that because it just like as someone that worked and scouted offenses 80 hours a week, if I saw the way the Titans play, there's one thing you do, and you load the box, take Derrick Henry out of the equation, let your offense get a lead, maybe 14, 17 points, and then just chill because you know they're not going to have Derrick Henry in the rest of the game, and Derrick Henry is your number one threat. He's everyone's number one threat when you're prepping for the Titans. So, yes, I think he can be a threat out of screens, and you're right. You've seen him break off for, 50, 60, 70 yards off of a screenplay, and he has gotten better. He's not Alvin Kamara. He's not Christian McCaffrey. He's not a screen guy. But if he needs to do that to make Ryan Tannehill more of a threat when he does pull back in the pocket, knowing, hey, he could pass it to Derrick, you have to explore that. So I'm hoping that's when they open up with the offense this year. I don't know if it'll happen, but it is something I'd like to see.
Yeah, and I think up until week 10, and then I stopped following it, Ryan Tannehill was, I think, first or second on throwing the ball on first down with play action because the defense thought it was going to be a run with Henry, and that let the wide receivers get open. All right, Chris, let's break down this division. Falcons and Carolina should be a lot better. I think Carolina's going to be a lot better. Tampa's in the Super Bowl. If I'm buying stock in this division, can I make the argument that the Saints are going to be the fourth best team over the next 5 years?
You'd have to make a strong argument to convince me. And the reason I say that is I want to see how the Falcons look with Arthur Smith first. I really like Arthur Smith. I think he's a fantastic play caller. I do wonder, though, with what the backfield in Atlanta is kind of a question for me. I think he has to get that running back first to really excel for his system. And if he does, I think it'll work out. But I kind of want to see that. And they also have Matt Ryan questions. I think people are going to realize that going from Ryan Tannehill to Matt Ryan at this stage in both their careers is a downgrade. So I need to see what happens there. Carolina's the team for me. If I'm buying stock, I'm putting them first. I really like what Matt Rule's doing. And I think that if you read the writing on the wall here, Carolina's going to go hard after a quarterback. They offered the 8th pick for Matt Stafford. They're going to be in trade discussions for Deshaun Watson if he's available. So if they can't get Deshaun Watson trade, I think they're going to trade up and try and get a Zach Wilson, a Justin Fields, and put them into an offense that has Christian McCaffrey, that has DJ Moore, that has Robbie Anderson. I think I'd put Panthers first. And then it comes down to Saints Bucks for the second spot. And I think it depends on how long do you think Brady's going to play. If you think Brady's going to play 3-4 years, all right, let's put the Bucks second. If you think Brady's going to play 1 or 2 more years and you don't know if he's going to be that great, all right, then maybe put the Saints second because the Saints are 8-1 in the last 2 seasons without Drew Brees. So I think that is an important metric to look at. But I would put Carolina first. I know they don't have their quarterback right now, but if you're telling me the next 5 years, I think Matt Rule is going to find his quarterback in the next 5 years.
Yeah, listen, I love what Matt Rule did. I know they only won 5 games, but just think about this. They had a game manager, someone in Teddy Bridgewater, who doesn't stretch the defense, and their 3 wide receivers all had over 70 catches. Curtis Samuel, Robbie Anderson, who was going to quit the Jets under Adam Gase. He said he didn't enjoy football anymore, had a great year. So their offense, when they get Christian McCaffrey back, will be special. Okay, Anna, the Jags are rebuilding. I expect them to be much better, obviously, with Urban Meyer. If the Colts get a quarterback, they're going to be good. Look, the Texans are a mess. But can we say right now, if the Colts get a quarterback and I'm buying stock, I'm taking the Colts 1, I'm taking the Jaguars 2, and I'm taking the Titans 3.
Oh, that hurt my heart so bad. And I think the reason it hurts so much is because you might be right. It really depends on who the Colts pick up. My other thing is with the Jags, your bet on Urban Meyer has not been a good player manager in his career, being good at taking a loss. And I don't think he can do that. He's so used to winning. And Jacksonville is not a winning franchise. So there are going to be some losses early on because everybody knows they're going to take Trevor Lawrence. We don't know if Trevor Lawrence is going to be a great NFL quarterback. I think the odds are in his favor, but we don't know until he does it. So I was reading, I think Nick Wright was the one that was saying it. He's like, everybody, including Jacksonville, needs to see if they can get Deshaun Watson, because that's somebody that's already proven what he can do. So I don't know how Urban Meyer's going to do. The Jags owner has already said that he wants a lot of roster control, and I don't think Urban Meyer's going to handle that type of like hands-on control from the owner, who is more of a soccer guy than a football guy. I don't think he's going to handle that well. And then in Indianapolis, what I've seen a lot of is Carson Wentz. And I would love to see Carson Wentz go to Indianapolis, because I feel pretty confident that we'll beat them every time. So, and Houston is a mess.
Carson Wentz's best success was under the offensive coordinator with the Eagles, Frank Reich, who's now the head coach of the Colts. I think if Frank Reich gets Watson or Carson Wentz, that offense will be pretty good. My final question to you regarding the Titans is, when you look at this team, when you go into next year, are we at the point where if they don't make the playoffs, because let's face it, they had some up years with Jeff Fisher, they've had some down years. Are you expecting consistently 10, 11 wins every year? Chris, with the Saints, obviously it's win the division, make the playoffs. Is that what the Tennessee Titan fans expect now?
Yeah, I think so. I think when you have somebody like Derrick Henry in your backfield, who is the back-to-back league rushing leader, you have high expectations and I've been very open about this, where I think we messed up was paying Ryan Tannehill $100 million, because there are other options that I think would have fit better. Those guys fit well together. But we've seen in the playoffs twice now, the Chiefs did it and now the Ravens have done it. If you put 9 people in the box, Derrick Henry can't run, which is understandable. And Ryan Tannehill's going to have to make a play. So I think it's going to be another year of, we're going to see if I was right in my assessment about Ryan Tannehill being a good quarterback, but not top tier. And a lot of Titans fans don't love that I say that, but that's just where I stand. And that it's a quarterbacks league. We saw that last night when you have every single MVP vote went to quarterbacks, and you have Derrick Henry who went for 2,000 yards and nobody voted for him. So it all hinges on who your quarterback is, even if you have the best running back in the league. And that's going to sit us kind of where you were saying earlier, probably second or third.
We're talking with Anna Lewis and Chris Rosagoo live here on the Full Monty Sports Show on YouTube. Listen, I'm so happy Aaron Rodgers won the MVP. I'm obviously a Packer fan, but to me the MVP is Tyreek Hill, and this is why. Every time that guy goes in motion, every time the entire defense shifts towards him. He's never going to be considered an MVP candidate, but he is so dominant. It is scary. Literally defenses, you watch when they break it down. He goes in motion. He runs a route. 3 guys will go towards him. He's the key to their entire offense. And we're bringing this up right now. We have about a minute left with you two. Anna, we'll start with you. Who do you like in this game, and who wins and why?
I want Tom Brady to win, because I want him to be able to say he did it without Bill Belichick and make it all the way his first year away from the Patriots. I think that would be a really cool story. If I'm putting money somewhere, I'm putting it on Kansas City. They're too explosive. Tyreek Hill is too much of a factor. Patrick Mahomes is too much of a factor. So we'll just have to see. But I do think it's going to be Kansas City, and I think it'll be probably a touchdown.
All right, Chris, who are you taking?
Well, I mean, you know who I'm not rooting for in this game. When it comes to who I'm taking, I actually think Tampa Bay has the better all-around team right now. I think their defense is playing so well. And what impressed me was Tampa Bay's defense off of Tom Brady turnovers. The guy had 3 interceptions against Green Bay, and it felt like the defense never cracked. They kept that game afloat. And that, when you look back at the NFC Championship game, is why they won. However, there's one man I can't bet against right now, and that man is Patrick Mahomes, because it seems like he starts every playoff game down 10-0. Then you go to get a drink, you come back to the TV, they're up 27-10. You're like, what the heck just happened? So I think that the Chiefs, it's going to be close. I'm going to go a little bold here. I'm going to say it's around 27-27. Mahomes leads a game-winning drive for Harrison Butker field goal. That's what I'm thinking right now.
Yeah, it's amazing because Vegas has it at 3.5. And people are begging to get down to 3. So either way, they're pushed. But the biggest bet right now is someone bet $3 million taking Tampa Bay and the 3.5. So, people think it's going to be a close game. I'm going to get to my prediction later. But, Chris, you made a great point. You said that their defense has been so good the second half of the year, Tampa Bay. And Anna, you bring up a good point. Everyone said that Tom Brady is a system quarterback. Well, he brought that system. The system is him. because Bill Belichick is I think he's 12 games below 500, not going into this year without Tom Brady, and Tom Brady is taking another team to the Super Bowl. Anna, start with you. Thank you so much. Where are you watching the Super Bowl, and how can we follow you?
Yeah, I'll be watching the Super Bowl with family, keeping it small. Got to be COVID conscious. So I hope all of you enjoy your time and are safe. But you can follow me. My handle is right here at Anna_Lewis35, and my podcast with Albert Hainsworth and one of my buddies, Joe Lemming, is at SIA Titans Beat. And you can find my network at the SIA Network on all handles. So go give us a follow.
Definitely do that. And Chris, how can we follow you? Where are you watching the game?
I'm going to be watching it at home because I'm going to be writing for the Spun during it. So I'll be at home with my siblings and my parents. So not a big get together here, but obviously we shouldn't anyway during these times. So people can follow me on Twitter at Rose Vogel Report as they see on the screen. And then they can check out my work either at the Spun or the Straight Up Saints podcast on iTunes.
Guys, thanks so much for having you on. Once the draft comes, we'll have you on again. Fans love when you guys come on my show. So I really appreciate you taking the time and enjoy the Super Bowl.
Thanks, Monte.
Thank you for having me, Monte.
All right. Great job by Chris. Great job by Anna. You guys know that, every time those guys come on, fans seem to love it. All right, it's time to bring on the Nuts and Bolts Sports Crew. He is the host of No Huddle Necessary, Jeff Barnes. And best name, as Jeff always introduces him, the most famous name out there, Keith Richards. How are you guys doing today?
Good. How you doing, man?
I'm doing good. Listen, we're going to get right into it. Look, Jeff, we're going to start with you. Matt LaFleur, past 2 years, 13-3 with the Green Bay Packers, basically the same exact team that your head coach, Mike McCarthy. Mike McCarthy this year started off, they looked like they were in disarray. What do you like? What don't you like? Is Jerry getting rid of this guy? Because I got to be honest with you. When I look at what Arizona did, they drafted a quarterback in Josh Allen. They hired a coach. They fired the coach the next year. They bring in Cliff Kingsbury. They get Kyler Murray. They cut ties. Jerry Jones won't do that because his ego is way too high. So what do you like? What don't you like about Mike McCarthy?
I like the fact that he's willing to be progressive. However, my problem with Mike McCarthy is that what you saw was very disorganized last year. Everybody's going to say, yes, they had a shortened season because of COVID, off-season because of COVID, all that. That is very true. There were teams that were able to put it together. His team did get better towards the end of the season, despite the fact they lost so many people on the offensive line. They lost their starting quarterback. But at the end of the day, when you look at that team, it should have been way better than it was. And the fact of the matter is he continued to have faith in guys that just couldn't get it done. Mike Nolan couldn't get it done. And honestly, I'm really have my doubts about Kellen Moore at this point as well.
People say that Kellen Moore, when he first took over a couple years ago, was a young guy. You got to let him learn. I mean, but that's kind of sailed, right? I mean, he has enough experience now where experienced defensive coordinator should not be exploiting his game plan week in and week out.
The problem with Kellen Moore is there's no consistency to his game plan. When you watch the Cowboys offense, yes, they're explosive. Yes, you have all that talent. All right. And granted, like I said, the offensive line was beat up last year, but they still found ways to move the football. He is a very creative offensive coordinator. The problem with Kellen Moore is every offensive coordinator has a rhythm. As somebody who's called plays, when you get to a certain point, if you have a formula that's working, you don't change it up just to change it up. And you'll see that with drives with him where they will move consistently down the football field. They'll get inside the 30, and he'll start calling out of the box.
It's like he will exploit a team's weakness, and then all of a sudden, like, for example, they'll pass the ball, then they'll run 6 straight times. It's like, I agree with you. I think there's a lot to be desired with his play call. All right, Keith, let's talk about the Denver Broncos. 7-9, took a step back, 5-11. What do you like about Vic Fangio? What don't you like?
I think the most important thing that Vic Fangio brought to this team was mental toughness. If you're not familiar with the Denver sports market, they don't take kindly to losing. Doesn't matter if losing benefits the team and getting a greater draft pick. They want to win no matter what the cost at some times. And that's what Vic Fangio brought to the team. They were competitive in pretty much every game in his 2 years as coach. What I don't like is I don't think he's ready to be a head coach. There's a lot of times in games where He didn't call timeouts when he should have. He called timeouts when he shouldn't have. His game awareness.
So you're saying he's stuck in the defensive coordinator mode?
I love what he did with the defense. The defense has also faced a lot of injuries this season. The defense was still really good. I think actually they were the best red zone defense in the NFL for a period. But he is not a good coach when it comes to making the right calls for the offense to be able to do some right things. Because he hurt the offense in many ways with some of those timeouts that he took in several games this season.
Okay, real quick, and then we're going to bring on another member of Nuts and Bolts Sports, Ariana Prasad. Listen, Drew Lock played in 13 games, 16 touchdowns, 15 interceptions. I look at the Las Vegas Raiders, who are probably going after Deshaun Watson. I look at my boy Justin Herbert, who I called week 1 on the show will win Rookie of the Year. You look at the Chiefs and Patrick Mahomes. Do you have a quarterback, yes or no?
With the way this team is constructed right now, no. And people will take that as I don't like Drew Lock. I like Drew Lock. I think he's a project, but he could be a very serviceable quarterback under the right coaching circumstance. But given how this division looks, he is not the quarterback for right now. And if you're Denver, you have to do whatever it takes to keep Deshaun Watson from going to Vegas and bring him here to Denver.
Has there been talk about Denver going after him?
Not that I've heard a whole lot of. I mean, John Elway is no longer the GM, but he's still a team president. So he says he's not going to be making as many decisions when it comes to the football decisions of the team. But to me, it's a no-brainer. You need offensive line help. You can find serviceable offensive linemen in middle rounds. You got 2 stud running backs. You got at least 3 good receivers. So if you need to give away 3 or 4 first-round picks to get Deshaun Watson, you do that because that gives you the ability to win right now, and you can still build towards the future. But with John Elway still being the team president, I just don't see them doing it, but it's what they need to do.
Yeah, I don't like John Elway making decisions for this franchise, especially as the general manager. All right, let's bring on a third member of Nuts and Bolts Sports. Ariana Prasad, how are you today?
Hi, I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing good. Listen, we want to get right into the Seattle Seahawks. They just hired first of all, they fired Schottenheimer, which I thought was long overdue. Yeah, Jeff is applauding that. It was run, and then let Russell Wilson do something. They did more things this year with Russell Wilson, but what do you like about the new offensive coordinator? What do you hear about Shane Waldron?
Yeah, so I think that Shane Waldron, in doing research, I think that he's a great pick. But the exciting thing about him, actually, is he has 2 Super Bowl rings when he worked with Bill Belichick. So he's with the New England Patriots for a long time as a quality control coach. And then he also worked under McVay. So Waldron has been to his share of Super Bowls, you could say. And the other exciting thing is I know Pete Carroll wants to run effectively. That's something that he mentioned is a goal for this offseason. And when Waldron was working in Los Angeles, the Rams ranked top 10 in passing yards 3 times and top 10 in rushing yards 3 times. So I think that we can say that Waldron's game plans have proven successful, and he's able to successfully mix it up, which is great. Seattle has been great at running the ball, and they've always been heavy on the run game. But as we saw this year, we let Russ cook toward the beginning of the season, and then it fizzled out in the end. So hopefully with Waldron, everything can be smooth sailing in 2021.
Yeah, I think it's a good hire. You look at what Sean McVay and his coaching tree, it's almost like people are just want to take, members of his staff. I mean, 2 of his staff are going on to become head coaches now. It almost reminds me of the Washington football team when they had Sean McVay, Kyle Shanahan, and Matt LaFleur on the staff, and they obviously didn't hire either one of them. So it says a lot about them. All right, Jeff, what are we going to do about Dak Prescott? Who has the leverage now for his contract? Coming off an injury, and we saw how bad they were without him. Does he have the leverage, or does Jerry Jones have the leverage saying, look, you came off an injury, let's wait and see? Are they going to finally give him a long-term deal?
That depends on his agent. I mean, honestly, they could have had a long-term deal tied up last year. His agent was fixed on the 4-year deal. Dallas is not willing to budge on the 4-year deal. So do they get any closer with that this year? Is the agent going to finally back off and say, you know what? I'm getting the $35-38 million per year that we want, I will go with that. But as far as the Cowboys moving forward with them, I'm going to channel my inner Schwarzenegger on this one and say they're going to keep him because, plain and simple, he is like this steel. He is tested. He is strengthened.
That's great.
And plain and simple, they want him.
Okay, so wait, Jeff, if you're the general manager, Jeff, are you paying him $35 million for 4 years?
Yes, because that is the going rate for the type of quarterback that he is. Everybody say, well, let's move on and trade for Watson. Watson's getting the same amount of money. So that is now the going rate. It is only going to go up. If you want a top 10 quarterback, you're going to pay $35 to $40 million a year.
Okay, so do you think they get the long-term deal done? What does your gut tell you?
My gut tells me they're going to tag him first and eventually get it done before training camp because he's not going to want to play on the tag a second year.
Okay. All right. Let's move to Jerry Jeudy. Keith, love this guy coming out of Alabama. 52 receptions, very inconsistent, like most of the rookie wide receivers that Alabama had coming out this year in the NFL. Can he be a legitimate number one?
I think he can be, but I don't think that was his issue this season. When they drafted him, they did not expect him to be the number one. The number one receiver for the Broncos is Courtland Sutton. Then Courtland Sutton went out in the offseason with injury for the year. So I don't really bury Jeudy because he is not in a system that is conducive for growth for offensive players. He was thrown into the number one receiver position. The offensive play calling was a mess. Obviously, Drew Lock didn't play very well. So could he have played better at times? Yes. The one thing he absolutely needs to work on is dropping the football. He had way too many drops this season. But expecting that Courtland Sutton is going to come back and be the number one receiver, I think Jeudy will have a much better season next year and have a better opportunity for growth. I think he can be a number one receiver sometime down the road, maybe 3 or 4 years, just not right now. And I don't think they expected him to be the number one receiver right now. It just looks so much worse because that's the position he was thrown into.
Right. A good point. Listen, and people are asking about Von Miller, cap, injury. What are they going to do with Von Miller? Is he still a top 5 linebacker when he's healthy?
When he's healthy, yes. Von Miller has some things going on right now that will make you want to move on him for different reasons. But assuming all of that gets sorted out and he plays healthy, I think you keep Von Miller if you can, because Bradley Chubb, but without Von Miller, looked really good at times last season. When you put those two together, then you have 2 dominant edge rushers that you can work with. And there's not a whole lot they can lose on defense to stay competitive. I think the defense is good, but they don't have many pieces that they can get rid of in order to stay competitive.
Yeah, I think Vic Fangio, when he has talented defense, he definitely, as you said, they could definitely be a force to be reckoned with. All right, Ariana, let's move to you. The second half of the season, we're talking about defense again. I love the fact that they got Jamal Adams. I love the fact that they got Carlos Dunlop. Those 2 guys were absolute studs. In the last 5 games, they were in the top in giving up points, least amount of points. They were the top in sacks. But what do they need to do to really fill up a defense that was terrible the first half of the year?
Yeah, so I think that this is something that Seahawks and all NFL fans will remember from the beginning of this year. But the Seahawks historically were allowing the most passing yards ever in the NFL. So my answer to that is we saw their defense strengthen on the defensive line. We got Carlos Dunlap. I just did a profile on Poona Ford. So we definitely got some veterans and rising stars there. We've got Bobby Wagner and KJ Wright at linebacker. But I think the secondary, specifically the cornerback position, is really something that we could bolster. I think we forget with the Legion of Boom, the talent that was Richard Sherman, and how much of a difference that made. I think we really need an elite corner right now at that position so that we can defend the pass. Of course, strengthening that takes pressure off of other aspects of the defense. So I think that's what we need to strengthen.
Yeah, I think we joked around on the show that all Jamal Adams wants for Christmas is an interception because on 3rd and long, he was always blitzing the quarterback. He was never in the backfield.
Right.
Jeff, people are going crazy for that sword. Can we see that one more time, please? That is just That's awesome. That is awesome. All right, Jeff, I'm going to say things here that are not going to be popular with Dallas Cowboy fans. It's not going to be popular. I think the best running back on this roster is Tony Pollard, not Ezekiel Elliott. I think the best wide receiver is CeeDee Lamb, not Amari Cooper. Can I say, hey, guys, let's trade Ezekiel. Let's trade Amari Cooper. Let's get some more draft picks, build up that defense, and let's let these young guys play.
That would be a very fan take on that because those are the nice and shiny parts of the offense. But those guys, if you look at it, you had your chance to see what this offense looked like with Tony Pollard as the feature back when Zeke was out, and he was largely ineffective except when he would break that one big run. So if you're willing to have a running game that's featured on a boom or bust running game.
The Detroit Lions lived on that for years with Barry Sanders.
But there's only one Barry Sanders. There's only one Barry Sanders.
Okay. So you disagree with what I'm saying?
As far as listen, I get what you're saying. I get where it comes from. Unfortunately, it's not very true.
Okay, good one.
But yes, unfortunately, listen, Zeke Elliott. If you're going to compare him to cars, yes, he is the nice shiny sports car in Tony Pollard. Zeke Elliott is your Ford Super Duty. He'll go long. But the fact of the matter is he's going to get you to work every day.
But Jeff, let's be honest here. Every year over the last 3 years, the yards per carry for Ezekiel Elliott has gone down.
And
he's been fumbling lately, what he never used to do.
Yeah, well, the fumbles were an anomaly this year. But as far as the yards per carry, look, you want to see the tail? When we talk about greatest running backs, we always go back to when we talk about Emmitt Smith and Barry Sanders, we always say Emmitt Smith had the better line. Well, if the line matters that much, look at the line the past 4 years for the Dallas Cowboys. When Zeke got there and to now, you'll see why his yards per carry average is going down. The offensive line has gotten worse. Tyron Smith has not played a full season in 4 years. Travis Frederick is retired. Zach Martin is starting to find the injury bug. And even Lyle Collins has been injured. So when you look at that line last year, he was running behind a bunch of guys that a lot of people didn't know who. The only steady starter at that line last year was Connor Williams, which is not their best out of their starting five.
Jeff, I think my friend Andrew is challenging you. She has a real samurai sword. Let's battle. And George, I disagree with you. Jeff is saying I do have the facts, Monty, and you're wrong. One time Joe Cardozo came on the show, the founder of Nuts and Bolts Sports. Jeff, I think you were on the show. He goes, I don't have any facts to back that up, Monty, but you're wrong. For some reason, the Nuts and Bolts Sports crew just loves to tell me I'm wrong all the time. All right. Ariana, the offense was great with Russell Wilson. We obviously got a new offensive coordinator, but there was just something not right the last 4 or 5 games with this offense. What did it just get stale? Was it the coordinator? Was it the same plays being run? What happened? Because when you look at the playmakers they have with Tyler Lockett, DK Metcalf, and the slew of running backs, my answer would be they need to go heavy and draft offensive linemen and develop that in the free agency. But what was the problem the last few games with their offense?
I think that's a great point to bring up the offensive line. As we know, they do go early in the draft, but sometimes this can be a really big area that teams will overlook, especially when they have elite quarterbacks. They're just, with someone like Russell Wilson, you can scramble, you can make plays, so we can kind of get by without having the strongest O-line. But as far as like the last games of the season, I don't know if you heard, but even fans in Seattle were saying we should trade Russell Wilson and saying that seriously.
Yeah.
So, but I just think part of that is that, at least from what I saw during the games, Russell's scrambling out and then taking the sacks, and almost looking like a little bit scared, which sounds ridiculous maybe, but that just I guess it just wasn't the same confidence at the beginning of the season. And, it just wasn't able to execute those plays when he did roll out, something that he's been able to do throughout his whole career. So that's a good question. I guess that, after a time, those first few games, you're just going to have crazy passing yards. And after that, you are going to become a little bit predictable. So I hopefully sorry.
No, I was going to say what really shocked me is one of the things that make Russell Wilson so great is when he scrambles or Kyler Murray scrambles, because of their baseball, they know how to slide. Russell Wilson never really got hit a lot in his first 6 or 7 years in the NFL. And now this year, we saw him get hit a lot, and especially early on. And it kind of made me think what you just said, maybe he was a little gun shy.
Yeah, I think so. And then that's why we got to talk about the offensive line, because if they're letting all this pressure get through, like, what can your quarterback do? It doesn't even matter what the weapons are. If he has under a second to throw the ball, like, just nothing's going to happen. So I think the other important thing is the Seahawks, like what Pete Carroll said, do need to mix it up with the run, so that they can have a more balanced offense and, set up the play action and do things like that. So I think that's really the key here with offenses.
I don't know who's serenading us, but there's some beautiful music being played in the background.
I apologize. That's an alarm clock.
Oh, okay. You can go shut it off. You can go shut it off if you want, because I'm gonna go to Keith right now. All right, Keith, what are we doing this offseason? Now, I'm gonna say the biggest question marks for the Denver Broncos right now are the two most important pieces you need for a franchise. I don't believe in your quarterback. I don't believe in your coach. What are we doing this offseason?
I think Denver can do one or two things. They can either go all in at quarterback, or they can go all in at offensive line.
Okay.
My preference would be to go all in at quarterback. Ideally, you want to have a great quarterback and a great offensive line. But we've seen with players like Patrick Mahomes, Russell Wilson, Deshaun Watson, Kyler Murray at times, you don't necessarily need to have a great offensive line if you have a quarterback with mobile accuracy. So there's mobile quarterbacks, which I think Drew Lock is a mobile quarterback, but Drew Lock does not have mobile accuracy. He can't make those sidearms, back foot throws that people like Patrick Mahomes and Deshaun Watson and Russell Wilson can. So if you're not going to build your offensive line, you have to have someone who can compensate for that. So whether it be Deshaun Watson or, hey, Colin Kaepernick is still looking for a job, even though I know that's not going to happen with Elway. If they're not going to build the offensive line, they need to have someone who can compensate for that. That's why I think they should go after Deshaun Watson, because it can keep that same offensive line as much as I dislike them, but he can overcome their deficiencies. And then you got to get rid of Vic Fangio. I've said many times I would love Vic Fangio to stay on as defensive coordinator, but I'm not going to blame him for not wanting to take a demotion. So if he doesn't want to be defensive coordinator, he can't be head coach either. So They got to move on from that.
Ariana, people are saying someone at a casino, great tunes, sounds like a slot machine. Are you a gambler? Was that alarm sounded like slot machines, like you were at a casino?
I'm not a heavy gambler, but I do some NFL gambling, I would say that. And I'm really excited for the Super Bowl. I did an interview yesterday learning about prop bets, so might put some money down today.
Yes, actually, Rico, who we're going to bring on in a little bit, I'm going to do a prop bet. Let me know what you guys think of this. Clyde Edwards-Helaire over 2.5 catches. I think he could get that in the first half. Screens, right? I mean, they're going to go heavy. I mean, Clyde Edwards-Helaire is a very good. Before we get your prediction on the Super Bowl, I just want to wrap this up here, talking about your prospective teams. We're talking with Ariana Prasad, Jeff Barnes, and Keith Richards live on the Full Monty Sports Show. All right, Jeff, here's the big question. First off, the division is a disaster. I think the Washington football team is going to be better. I think the Eagles will be better. I think the Giants will be better, but they have a ton of question marks. When I look at just the roster, the Dallas Cowboys have the best roster in this division. So if they don't win 10 or 11 games, is it time to move on from their coach?
I would say if they have the roster intact and they don't live up to standards, yes, it's time to move on. He's had 2 seasons. You said Garrett couldn't get over the hump. That's why you got rid of him. He made bad choices in trying to switch the defense with Nolan. Right? This was all these were his hires. So they can't blame Jerry for those coaches. These are the guys he picked. Their whole thing was he sat out of football for a whole year, went through the whole analytics thing. He came up with a formula and was going to win. Well, 2 years in, it looks like a disaster. You're gone. Plain and simple. It doesn't work. It doesn't work. Move on. All right. But the fact of the matter is this: they have to win. Right? You're going to see the biggest splashes for this team is going to come from signing their own guys. They're not going to go out there and put a bunch of big name free agents on the roster. That's not what they do with Jerry and Steven at the lead now. Jerry would have done that in the past. Steven is not that guy. All right. So it'll become from they have a bunch of guys on their defense they have to re-sign. They have some key offensive guys they have to re-sign. All right. So it's going to come from that. Well, they're going to be able to re-sign those guys, add in some middle of the road as far as pricing free agents, but the main thing is that, and then of course nailing it in the draft. What compensatory picks are they going to get this year? Because they lost Byron Jones, because they lost Randall Cobb and a few other players in free agency the year before. So these are all guys that they're going to have to use all of those picks because they traded away a few last year. So they're going to need all of those picks to help supplement what they have and bolster this roster.
But you would agree that they should be the favorite to win the NFC. And I agree, when the NFC is more competitive, the NFL is better because you have Philadelphia, Dallas, New York, big market cities. Would you agree that the Dallas Cowboys should be favored going into the start of next season?
They should be, but realistically, are they? Once again, we talked about what they stand to lose this offseason. So you talk about a defense that didn't play well and it could get even worse if they don't fix it the right way. All right. The young corners that they do have, they could lose. All right. Two of them are up as free agents this year. And you're not going to be able to sign both of them. I doubt that they will. So you got to work. You got to hope that Diggs comes on better than he did last year. You got to hope that the other young corner, Robinson, comes on better than he did last year. You better hope whoever you draft this year comes on and makes an immediate impact, because plain and simple, you're going to lose some more of these guys that you just got.
I thought Diggs showed signs that he could be really legit, but like most rookie defensive backs, safeties, free safeties, he made a lot of mistakes, but I think he's very talented.
He's talented, but you saw his two biggest weaknesses: ball skills and, of course, top-end speed matching up.
Right.
He's fast, but when he's beat off the line, he's beat off the line. Yeah. And there's two things he has to improve on. Otherwise, he's going to have a very tough first 5 years in the league.
Okay, Ariana, from the outside looking in, I'm a Jet fan, so the season's over by Halloween. From the outside looking in, where are the Seahawks fans? Someone like you who covers them, who watches them closely, is it just making the playoffs good enough? Was this a successful season? Because I look at that division. Rams now got Matthew Stafford. Okay, Arizona is going to be better with Kyler Murray in another year. And San Francisco is going to get rid of their quarterback, and they're going to do something. They have an elite defense. So from the outside looking in, I'm like, look, Seattle needs to do something here because the window, and Pete Carroll may leave in another 1 or 2 years, may be closing. Was this a successful year? Is this what you expect moving forward? Or are you nervous that the division has really gotten better?
Yeah, well, this is definitely a very, very competitive division. I think we've seen that. The Rams just went to the Super Bowl. The 49ers just did. So they're coming out of the NFC West. And we would like that to be the Seahawks as well. But they need to make a push. They've been making the playoffs, like 8 times in the past decade since Pete Carroll came on. So, all right, they can get that far, but they're, leaving in the first round or second round and, went to the Super Bowl twice. But no, I don't think it's enough with the talent that this team has. And Pete Carroll, Russell Wilson, and all the weapons they have in offense and defense. But I think the good thing about this year, I will say, as we saw, there was obviously a failure and dysfunction we saw in that Rams game. So there wasn't enough to push through. This team wasn't strong enough to go to the Super Bowl and honestly hasn't been. But it's good to know that because that prompted the Seahawks to hire a new offensive coordinator. So hopefully with Waldron, they can, diversify that offense. They can work on building that defense more, and they can get to the Super Bowl because they really do need to make changes and make a push because they really should be able to get to that level.
Yeah, I think losing in the first round for the Seahawks was kind of a letdown. And yes, I've said the Jets now 3 or 4 times, so we know what we do every time I mention the Jets, and it is Super Bowl Sunday. So enjoy a cocktail right there. All right, going to ask you one more question. Then we're going to get Rico on, Jared, and George Lopez on. And then we're going to ask you guys about the Super Bowl. So my first question for you, Jeff, Notre Dame. Can we just say that they are a top 10 program, but they are not a top 4 program? Every time they make it to the Final Four, they look like they're about 5 or 6 players short. So I have no problem with saying my Oregon Ducks are a top 15 team. They're not an elite program. Why do we still want to believe that Notre Dame is an elite program?
They are a top 10 program. Last year they were top 4 because if you look behind them, who else was better behind them? We already saw A&M wasn't better. We already saw Florida wasn't better. Okay, they were able to beat Clemson during the regular season. You can't beat Clemson twice in the same year. That was a given. What happened to them the second time around?
But Jeff, they were without Trevor Lawrence.
But yes, but they were undefeated without Trevor Lawrence before they lost to Notre Dame, and they didn't exactly get smoked by Notre Dame either. But nevertheless, they did lose. All right, now if you want to look at it, the same even with Trevor Lawrence, Clemson almost lost to Syracuse. All right, so let's not forget that. All right, Clemson was a flawed team, and they got exposed once against Notre Dame, but twice. All right, twice they got exposed because when they went up against Ohio State, you saw the same deficiencies. All right, but when you look behind them, after that top four, there was a gap, and we saw it. But
I'm throwing this year out because of COVID. I'm just asking you as a Notre Dame fan, are fans okay with them winning 10 and 11 games? Because to be honest with you, if I'm Brian Kelly, I go to the NFL. He's done all he can do in Notre Dame. He brought them back to more than being respectful. They are a top 10 program. It's not an insult to say they're a top 10 program.
Okay, well, just like Cowboy fans, Notre Dame fans will never ever accept just being top 10.
Okay.
So we can let's get in touch with the reality part of that one. Okay. All right, so Notre Dame fans will never, ever accept that. They want to be national champions again, just like Cowboys fans want to be Super Bowl champions again. All right, but when it comes down to it, yes, he has done just that. He has brought them back to being top 10. But you are never, ever going to satisfy the base at Notre Dame if you don't bring a national championship back. So Brian Kelly, they are happy with the job that he's doing, but they want more. And honestly, he's capable of more. If we're going to talk about Brian Kelly as the coach that he is, okay, you need to find a way to bring in a top quarterback that's actually going to do something for the program and take it to the next level. Enough with the Ian Books, okay? Don't chase off any more guys who had the potential to do it like DeShone Kizer, okay? Because if DeShone Kizer would have stayed at Notre Dame for 2 more years, he would have been a top 10 pick, okay? He was immature when he left. And yes, Kelly knew it, but throwing him under the bus when he left was a bad move, and it's the reason why he can't get the quarterback that he wants.
Okay, I'll end that segment of this show with this. The Cowboys haven't won since the mid-'90s. Notre Dame hasn't won since the late 80s. So people are holding on to this dream about something that was once great is no longer great. That's all I'm going to say. Cowboy fans, Notre Dame fans, I have nothing but respect for Notre Dame football. I wish Oregon was as consistent as Notre Dame football. But being a top 10 team is not an insult. Okay, finally, Keith, and we'll get to Keith, walk me through the Denver Nuggets. They got smoked by my Lakers last couple nights ago. No matter how this team breaks out, they're still the 3rd best team in the conference maximum. Am I wrong in saying that?
No and yes. The problem with this team is that the 2 players up on the screen are probably the 2nd best 1-2 tandem in the league when they play to their potential. The problem with the team is they don't always play to their potential. Jokic has been great this season. I personally think, biased, non-biased, whatever you want to call it, Jokic is the MVP of the league so far. The problem is that Jamal Murray, he's had some injuries, but he hasn't been consistent either. When those 2 are playing at their top levels, it's very hard to beat that team. And then when you throw in, when you have injuries, and then this year they got unlucky with losing Michael Porter Jr. for so long because of
that was a huge injury because he had a great bubble.
He had a great bubble. He had a great preseason. He had a game he scored 31 this year. His problem is that he can't consistently grow because he's not consistently playing. It was a back injury before. It's COVID this year. They just completely lack consistency to be an NBA champion team. If they were consistent, I would maybe take them in 7 games over the Lakers. But they're not consistent. And I think at this point, whether you have to get away from Mike Malone or do you have to trade like a Gary Harris Jr. or whoever it may be, they have to find consistency if they want to be talked about as one of the best teams in the league.
I don't know why Joe's saying that, Jokic shouldn't be considered. I have Joel Embiid as the MVP, and my 2nd pick is Jokic. So I don't, Andrea says the same thing here. They don't play to their potential, but I don't know why Joe's shocked that you're saying Jokic could be the MVP.
That's because Joe's a hater. He's just mad that the Wizards are terrible.
All right, Ariana, let's end with you here. Who wins the Super Bowl and why Who are you? Are you rooting for anyone? Being a Seahawk fan, or you just want to see a competitive game?
Well, actually, I don't know if y'all know, but I'm a Tom Brady fan, so I am rooting for the Bucs. But I actually am pulling for the Bucs to win this one. It's narrow, and it could go either way. I'm well aware. But with Tom Brady's experience, with what he has going on the offense, I feel like they're firing on all cylinders at this point. And I really feel like that defense is strong enough. And if they could do what they did in the second half of that game against Kansas City earlier this season, I think that they might be able to hold Mahomes down. We'll see how that goes, but I think they have the defense and offense to pull through and get this one.
After Russell Wilson threw the interception against the Patriots, and you're still rooting for Tom Brady, you must be the most forgiving, compassionate person, because Seattle fans despise Tom Brady. Give us a score if you can.
I'm thinking 36-33. It'll definitely be close.
And you have the Bucs winning.
Yes, I do.
Okay, how can we follow you and read your stuff?
So you can follow me on Twitter. It's my name at Ariana Prasad. On Instagram as well. It's the same. I'm not that creative. But I write for Sports Illustrated and Paralympics. I actually just published an article for Paralympics about differently abled NFL players throughout history. So I talked about Tom Dempsey and the kick for the Saints, and I talked about Shaquem Griffin and the work that he does. That's
awesome. I'm definitely going to check that out. We appreciate the time. Enjoy the Super Bowl.
All right. Thank you so much.
All right, that was Ariana Prasad, who does a great job. Let's get the other guys in here now. All right, Keith, give us your prediction. Who wins and why?
See, I'm in an impossible position. I dislike Tom Brady. I agree that he's one of the best all time. I don't like Tom Brady. Pat Mahomes is in my division. And that being said, I know he's in my division. But if you're a fan of football, you cannot hate on Patrick Mahomes. I think the difference in this game is going to actually be the Kansas City defense. They were terrible at times during the season, but when it comes to the playoffs, that Kansas City defense turns it on and play behind the might of Patrick Mahomes. I think the Chiefs are going to win this one. I said on Jeff's show on Wednesday, 41-27. I mean, everyone knows the formula to beat the Kansas City Chiefs. Good luck trying to enact that formula to beat the Kansas City Chiefs. They're just too loaded. You can do everything you can right, and they will still make you do everything wrong because there's just too many players to guard on that offense. And their defense is underrated, especially knowing that all we have to do is give Patrick Mahomes the ball 1 or 2 times, and he can take this game away from us.
Yeah, I said it earlier in the show. I said it last week. Tyreek Hill, to me, is the most valuable player in the NFL because everywhere that guy goes, if you watch film, 3 defenders follow him. I think Tyreek Hill not getting talk for MVP is absolutely disgusting because he is the absolute decoy. And then when you leave him alone for one play, Patrick Mahomes finds him. Keith, how can we follow you and support you? I'm going to have you on in a couple weeks to talk about the Denver Nuggets more in detail for NBA shows.
I'm at 5280 Keith on Twitter. I have an Instagram that I don't really do a whole lot with, but you can follow me on Instagram at Big Bizzle Bacon. Long story, don't even ask.
But wait. Can you repeat that? Can you repeat that handle?
It's at Big Bizzle Bacon.
Jeff, did you know he had that handle?
Not a clue. I learn something new every day.
People that I have that handle. I keep that one.
All right, Keith, we'll see you down the road. Enjoy the game. Thanks so much for taking the time out.
Thank you.
All right. Now, finally, Jeff, we're closing the show with the champion that you are, the host of No Huddle Necessary. Who wins this game and why?
All right, so I got the Chiefs taking it 38-34. I think both offenses are going to find their stride. I think the Chiefs get the last score that wins the game. Listen, both offenses are loaded. Both defenses have their moments. Granted, the Bucs defense has been playing well, but this Chiefs offense is a totally different monster. Okay, this is a team you cannot run with man-to-man. If you play zone, they will eat it. So, therefore, I'm going 38-34 Kansas City.
You know, I got to say, the Nuts and Bolts Sports Crew, we started with Ariana playing her casino music. We had you holding up the sword, and then Keith closes the show with Bizzle Bacon. So you guys hit a home run. Jeff, how can we follow you? How can we support your show?
By all means, listen, Wednesday night will be the final episode of season 1 of No Huddle Necessary here on Nuts and Bolts Sports. And then after that, we have Draft Central starting up, which will be myself, Bill Carroll, and breaking down the draft for you guys every week. So you can follow me on Twitter at Jeff Barnes 29. I don't do Insta Chat or Snappagram, so you can find me on Twitter.
All right, Jeff. Thanks so much. See you down the road. Really appreciate you taking the time out.
No problem. Thanks for having me.
Great job, Jeff, as always. Great job. All right, let's bring on our other two. Let's bring on our other crew here. Let's bring on Rico. Let's bring on Jared. Let's bring on. Let me get Jeff out of here. There we go. Let's bring on. I call this my crew. This is kind of my crew here. I coached Jared in college. I've been friends with Rico and George for years. How are you guys doing today?
Doing good. How you guys doing?
I like how when they said Joe was a hater, Keith, you just saw Keith.
Yeah, nodding.
He's like, yeah, agreed 100%. Didn't have to say one word.
All right, George, I'm going to start with you because you follow basketball like I do. And I just got to say this. What would you do if I came to you, George, and I said this to you? I said, George, I'm going to trade you Giannis Antetokounmpo, okay? And you're going to give me James Harden. You're going to give me Seth Curry, who's averaging 16 a game, and you're going to give me potential rookie of the year Andrew Weissman. Would you think I was crazy?
If you wanted to trade for James Harden, yeah.
Wait. First of all, let me just explain the reason why I brought that up is I traded Giannis. Jared proposed this trade to me. He gave me Harden, who's averaging 27 and 12 and 8. He gave me Curry, and he gave me Weissman. And my only conclusion to this terrible trade that he made is because I made him the man he is, and he wants to repay me in some way. That is a terrible trade by Jared.
James Harden is a great regular season basketball player.
This is fantasy basketball. That's all we're doing.
I can see them making that deal because I'm thinking playoffs.
I'm thinking this is what Jared gave me in fantasy basketball. He literally gave me the title.
I had stacked big men, so I don't care about Wiseman and Seth Curry. I literally just got on another trade as a throw-in. So I literally just traded you essentially Giannis for Harden. And I'm going to pick one guy instead of a guy playing with 3 dudes who got to share the ball. I'm going to take the guy who only has – he's the main guy. So
it's a terrible trade. It's a terrible trade all around. You gave me an extra 30 points, an extra 10 rebounds.
I gave you a bag of donuts and you just took it like it's something. I flipped them. That's all I did.
I'm gonna stay on Jared because I just want to really annoy him. Are we at the point now, Jared? Are we at the point when we can basically just say that the San Francisco 49ers are no different than the Dallas Cowboys? They were great in the 80s and 90s. They are no longer an elite team. You haven't won a Super Bowl since Steve Young. So why is this team a hot spot for free agents to go? Why should a player go there?
Don't compare us to the Cowboys, please. That's not even a fair comparison. I mean, at least we've been to a couple Super Bowls over the last 5-10 years. Yes, it's been 6-10, 3-13, 13-3, then 6-10, 5-11. It's been a little rocky, but we're getting there. So I think our organization is leaps and bounds above the Cowboys. I mean, they haven't even won a playoff game since I was like 4. So what are we even talking about here? That's not even a real life comparison.
People are still holding out. Look, what were you thinking, Jared? Why did you make that trade? People are just killing you for that trade.
It worked out for me because I just traded for Andre. I have Drummond, Markkanen, and I have Ayton. So I didn't need Wiseman.
Okay.
So it worked out for me. Trust me, I'm killing this week. So it's good.
But you're again. We're going back to this original point. The San Francisco 49ers are not an elite football team.
Okay, define elite.
I think the Steelers are elite. I think the Packers are elite. I think.
How?
You like that, George?
I was won a Super Bowl since the mid-90s.
Okay, so what? The Packers won one since then?
They were a Super Bowl 2 years ago.
The Packers
didn't win a Super Bowl.
Wait a minute. You think that the San Francisco 49ers over the last 20 years are a better organization than the Green Bay Packers, who went to
I didn't say better necessarily. I didn't say that, but you're saying I didn't say necessarily better. But if you're saying they're elite, one Super Bowl win in the last 20 years, that's elite. I don't know if that's elite to me.
All right, George. Look, Let's move on. You made your point. I disagree with it 100%. Jordan, I see you got your Rams stuff on.
Yeah.
They traded Jared Goff for Detroit, Matthew Stafford. Can I say this, George? Can I say that if San Francisco lands a quarterback, okay, Kyler Murray, Russell Wilson, and let's say San Francisco gets Deshaun Watson, which Jared would love, can I say that Matthew Stafford, they're in no better position because he's the fourth best quarterback in that division?
You know, I'm going to bring something up because I know we've talked about this even in the beginning of the season where you said Jared Goff would be the fourth best quarterback in the NFC West. I looked at something, and since we've had Sean McVay as a coach, Jared Goff against San Francisco, 3-5. Against Arizona, 7-0, including 3-0 against Kyler Murray. Against Russell Wilson and the Seahawks, 5-3. Fourth best quarterback in the division, and he was beating those teams. So it doesn't matter who's the best quarterback stat-wise. It's who's best fits their system. Goff, the system worked with him, and he was able to beat those teams. Granted, he had a losing record against San Francisco, and that included 0-4 really against Shanahan. Since
Shanahan owns him. Yeah,
Shanahan owned him. So he actually had a winning record against San Francisco until Shanahan got there. Winning record against Russell Wilson. Winning record against Kyler Murray. So if you want to look at numbers-wise, he was actually better than those two quarterbacks.
Okay, but Rico, you know this because I've talked to you about this with Big Ben. Okay, looking now, he may be the fourth best quarterback. You may have a better team in your division, so it limits your weaknesses of your quarterback play may not be exposed. But when you get to a better team, when you get outside the division where people don't know you, you could exploit those weaknesses. So do you agree with George's premises here, even though that Goff was the fourth best, he was still successful? But when you go to I'm talking about going to the playoffs, going to the Super Bowl. We saw how limited Goff was in the Super Bowl. And we talked about this, George, as well, a few years ago when they won 51-45, I think it was, against Kansas City. I said, that's the worst thing for Jared Goff because they can't win that way. Rico, do you agree with George? Do you feel the same way about Big Ben? Yeah, he may be the fourth best, but we have the most talent.
Well, I think when it comes down to what George is saying is that in his division, he's great. He's doing, he plays really well when he's playing in the division, which is huge. That's 35% of your record is inside your division. But I mean, Jared Goff is not, I'll take Stafford all day, 3 times a day. You know what I'm saying? But but you know what? The price they paid is they're pulling a Lakers, Dodgers. Give everything now to win now.
Yeah.
McVay isn't going to have a first round draft pick for like 4 of the last.
Well, the last first round draft pick he had was Jared Goff.
He'll be collecting Social Security by the time he gets one.
I looked. Okay, since
it's not. It's Matt Stafford, guys. It's not.
Yeah, but since Goff got into the NFL, you know who has the second most wins in the NFL?
He does.
Jared Goff. He's tied with Russell Wilson.
QB wins.
And that's including
QB
a winless.
wins.
But that's including a winless rookie season. So, everyone knocks him. I'm not going to knock him. He 3 out of 4 years, the Rams got to the playoffs. He led them to a Super Bowl.
Yeah, but George, you may not knock George
anymore. You
may not knock him, but they traded him for a reason.
No, they did trade him for a reason. It was the right move to make. The Rams lost confidence in him. He lost confidence in himself. He did. Ever since that Super Bowl, he was exposed. We saw it the last 2 years. He struggled. This year, he was not willing to pull the trigger, stretch the defense. All of a sudden, we saw it. And you're going to know this. Defense started coming in. We're going to shorten the field on you. We're going to take away what you do best. Throw it deep on us. He wasn't willing to do it. And McVay,
I see it with Garoppolo.
Yeah,
same thing.
And, he too many turnovers. So McVay lost confidence in him. So it was the right move to make. They traded.
Right.
I think they gave up too much.
Well, listen, I will say this. If they go to the Super Bowl and they win, it's fine. Everyone said that the Lakers gave too much for Anthony Davis. What does it matter? The Lakers won a championship. Lakers might go back to the championship.
I didn't think they gave too much. I love the deal.
Okay, Jared, let's talk about Jimmy Garoppolo. I say this all the time with Rico. I say anytime a Patriot player leaves, the Patriots are usually smarter than the rest of the NFL. Jimmy Garoppolo went to a Super Bowl, but they're done with him in San Francisco. So was this a mistake to bring him in, and where are you going with the quarterback?
I don't know if they're done with him. Honestly, I keep reading that it's still a possibility they're going to bring the guy back. I don't understand how you bring him back, knowing that if he comes back, you're paying him $27 million, and you can't re-sign Trent Williams, you can't re-sign Jason Verrett. So what's the point of bringing this guy back? And he clearly isn't the answer. And I'm not even going to say it's totally because of his ability. I'm going to say it's more because it's inability. He can't stay healthy. If you can't stay on the field, and we always talk about it, availability is the best ability. Yeah. What's the point if you're playing average of 5-6 games a year? What's the point of being out there, man? You're not able to maximize your team's potential if you're on the sideline with a clipboard. Yeah, you're pretty, you're smiling, people love you, but you're not in the field, man.
Hey, Jared,
so, how good you are if you can't play?
Jared, does this deal, the way Jimmy G, they hyped him out of New England? It reminded me of Scott Mitchell when he left Miami and went to Detroit.
But Jimmy's been a little better. Scott Mitchell was a disaster.
Jimmy's better, but everyone, when he backed up Marino, everyone had this hype about him. And I think Jimmy G is miles ahead better than Scott Mitchell, but I get that similarity.
Yeah. I mean, I had higher hopes for him. I think, honestly, when he tore his ACL, that just ruined his whole everything. If you see the guy play, he's a totally different player. He'll be in the pocket, and he'll literally look like someo's playing Madden and hit the B button by accident. He'll just start spinning around, getting scared, ducking. And I'm like, bro, there's nobody there. What are you doing? And I think he's so afraid.
He fits the offense that well. It's like they're not putting the offense around him. They're telling him, here's our offense, figure it out. Like Kansas City's offense, they work, great offenses work together to maximize the quarterback. I feel like San Francisco with him is just kind of like, we're doing this. You figure out how to fit into our scheme.
You know what it is though too. He only throws. He dominates the middle of the field. If you give the guy the middle of the field, his QB rating is going to be 150. He's going to be great. But teams now, they know he's afraid or has the inability to throw outside the numbers, and he's afraid to throw more than 20 yards. So people have that on him now. So if you're going to take away the middle of the field, the guy is basically a third string quarterback. I'm telling you right now.
When he beat the Rams, the one thing Shanahan did with him, quick hitches, quick slants. He wasn't stretchy, quick, and let the receivers, work after the ball, after catching the ball. And that's how he was beating the Rams. They weren't letting. It was a strength. And in other teams, he gets away from that. Shanahan gets away from that kind of play calling with him, and I don't understand why.
All right, Rico, let's move to you here. Okay, so Aaron Rodgers wins the MVP. Justin Herbert wins Rookie of the Year, which I called in week 1 of this show. And Aaron Donald wins.
Week 3, you called it.
Aaron Donald, George pointing to his Aaron Donald. Out of all those 3, Rico, make the argument as someone who take one of those awards away from someone who you're taking it away from.
Who am I taking it away from? I don't know. Justin Jefferson had a pretty great year, for Rookie of the Year. That's an argument that I would make of the other 3. The other 2, Darnold and
Rodgers.
Rodgers. They had just phenomenal years. You can't take that away from them. But Rookie of the Year, it could have went. I mean, I didn't see the voting how it went, but Jefferson had
I know Rodgers got 44 out of 50 votes. So Rodgers and Donald were.
Jefferson, when you watched him, he was like a pro. He was a beast. He was for a rookie, being a man amongst boys was pretty impressive. So,
that's definitely a fair argument, George. But talking about Aaron Donald here, why isn't that? Again, I don't live in LA, so I don't see all the hype. But why isn't the national media doesn't look at him like a Bruce Smith or a legendary? Is it because he doesn't do a lot of commercials? He's not, Reggie White. He doesn't have that aura about him. Why is that?
I don't know. I've never seen him do a commercial. He's a blue collar guy. He played at Pitt. He actually fit. He would be a perfect Steeler. I know you would agree with that, Rico. He's just blue collar. Let's get down in the dirt. Let's get dirty. Let's get at it. It's not about the hype or the fanfare outside it. He's LA. Believe it or not, LA, everyone glitz and glamour. LA fans love the blue collar type of player. Look at the jerseys that I have hanging up. Jack Youngblood is my favorite Ram of all time that I got to see play. Blue collar. Aaron Donald, same thing.
But do you agree he doesn't get that national, he's one of the best ever, but they don't talk about him in the same respect of a Reggie White.
He's not a charismatic person.
No, he's not. He's
Rico, either are you, but we have you on the show every week.
Aaron Donald.
He makes a good point about Jefferson. I just wanted to jump in.
Yeah, he doesn't care about the hype. It's the same with Mike Trout. Mike Trout is, and I hate saying this because I know my son's going to love me to hear me say this, is the greatest player in baseball right now. But how much do you hear about him? He doesn't do a lot of commercials.
Well, and they don't make the playoffs. They don't make the playoffs.
But he's just about being on the field, preparing, working hard, leaving it on the field. That's Aaron Donald.
All right, Jared, I'm going to ask you this question, and then I'm going to ask Rico if he agrees with your answer. The question is,
I agree.
Do you trade Jimmy Garoppolo, Bosa, and a number 1 pick for Deshaun Watson?
Hell no.
No.
They're talking about trading Bosa.
You do not trade Bosa.
I'm not trading Bosa a number 1 pick and a starting quarterback for a quarterback. That's not I wouldn't trade that for Joe Montana. That's just me. I mean,
that's sacrilege, Jared.
Rico,
listen,
that sounds
I think that's giving up too much, man. I think that's giving up too much personally. You're giving up
I
on
don't know.
I don't know. I wouldn't do that personally.
Their defense was too good without Bosa.
You're talking about
it was good, but it wasn't great.
All right, Rico, you agree.
You're talking about getting a quarterback who could be there for 10 years, 12 years, another 13 years.
Really? That's what Houston thought. What happened?
Well, no, that's true. That's true. I mean, I guess, but I mean, if you lock him into a monster well, you're right. I mean, now he's always got that flaw, that blemish that he could be.
Yeah, and you pay him. That's a lot of your cap that you're paying. If you pay him, you got to know that's at least 15+% of your cap every year. No quarterback has ever won the Super Bowl having 15% of his team's cap. So you got to think about that too.
Patrick Mahomes making $40 million this year.
No, but Patrick Mahomes, his contract doesn't really go into effect for another 2 years. They're still right there. But Jared, I'm going to let people in behind the curtain. Every week, Jared texts me how bad the quarterback play is for San Francisco. Now I'm giving you a guaranteed 68% completion, dual threat quarterback, and you're saying no.
I mean, I'm just going to find that in the draft. I'm going to get that with Zach Wilson.
Come on, man. How
do
are you
want to give up Bosa? He loves Bosa.
Yeah, you don't. I mean, and Jared,
you're my number 1.
Yeah, I hate the 49ers, and there's no way in hell I would tell the 49ers trade Bosa. Even though
that's like them saying trade Donald.
Yeah, even though I do think.
I don't know.
Let's slow down, Jared. Bosa's done it for 1 year.
I'm just saying. It's like relative to my team. I'm not saying he's as good as Aaron Donald. Nobody is.
Yeah, you don't trade him. Yeah, I would look at Jimmy G and maybe put in some draft picks, try to make that deal.
Yeah, definitely. I don't think that you need to go that crazy. You know what I mean?
I think the Rams gave up too much for Stafford. I'm glad we have him. But Snead's not too concerned about first round picks. They're pretty good at finding those blue chippers, in the later rounds and getting recognition through free agency.
Yeah.
All right, George, let's move to you here. The Los Angeles Chargers hired LA Rams defensive coordinator Brandon Staley. I know that you wanted to keep him, especially since he was young. Do you agree with the Chargers going with a defensive-minded coach who was a defensive coordinator because they have Justin Herbert? Maybe you would have went Bieniemy from Kansas City or an offensive coordinator. But people on social media made a good point. They said the reason why the Chargers lost was because they blew leads throughout the second half of games. So what are we getting in this coordinator here?
The Charger fans are going to get someone who's great with attention to detail. He knows how to scheme. If you're a Charger fan, you should be excited at the possibilities of what Staley is going to do with Joey Bosa. How he's going to have him. He's going to put him in situations where he's going to dominate even more. That defense should be a lot better. And, he brought in Lombardi to be the offensive coordinator. So I know Herbert's already looking at the Saints offense because I think that's what they're going to try to run. And I think he's going to do tremendous in that offense. But with Staley, that defense should improve immensely. They should easily be a top 15 defense next season. I don't see them blowing games leads like they did this past year if they buy into his system.
Okay, fair enough. Rico, listen, Pat Riley once said after 6 years of coaching one team, you have to either change the roster, especially if you don't win titles, or you got to change the coach. can I make the argument that Mike Tomlin's voice is being tuned out in the Steelers locker room?
You know, we have this conversation every year. You and every other sports journalist, everybody. Excuse me, I'm sorry. But every year they have this conversation. The guy has not had a losing season in his career ever. And you know what? I mean, I'm excited for the future. You know, I mean, Ben's, he's on his last year or two, and he's not even a lock. There's talk that he might not sign. You know, that he might, even though he's under contract, but he's going to hit. It's going to be a $42 million hit on the salary cap if they keep him. So they're trying to restructure his contract, but word is it's not going as well as Pittsburgh was hoping it was going to go.
Rico,
I heard Tomlin another 10 years, even if he lost the next 3.
Yeah. Rico, but here's what I'll say, and then I'll get your comment, George. Here's why I say this. Tomlin had great success his first 5 years. His last 5 years, they haven't won a Super Bowl. So it's kind of like, okay, has he peaked as a coach? Does he need new motivation? Has he gotten too comfortable? He lost the locker room with Antonio Brown and Le'Veon Bell.
He's living in the world. It's like Patrick Ewing and Akeem Olajuwon. They were phenomenal players, but their biggest problem is that they were living in the era of Michael Jordan. Tomlin, the fact that he has 2 Super Bowls under his belt is living in the world. I mean, he's living in the world of Tom Brady and Patrick Mahomes. You know what I'm saying? Like these guys, it's like it never stops. Like, if you remove Tom Brady, how many Super Bowls does he have? The Patriots knocked us out of the playoffs like 5 times in the last 10 years. So, it's one of those things and we all know Brady's the GOAT. He's,
No. Come on.
I'm sorry.
He ain't even close, bro.
No.
Not even close.
No.
He's not even close.
Well,
No.
You know what? I guess going to the Super Bowl doesn't mean much because this guy goes anyway. All right.
Rico, this is the
done,
dumbest
though?
argument ever made. He
That's your argument.
Bill
Name his biggest throw, please. Tell me what his biggest throw is.
Bill Belichick.
Look at his stats in every AFC Championship game.
28 points in the Super Bowl, 4 downs.
He didn't do that. That was because they were tired. The whole defense was tired. That was the whole game.
Rico, he lost to Eli Manning twice. He lost to Eli Manning. That's all I got.
Nick Foles.
A backup. Okay,
Rico, let me just say this.
Good he is.
The Brady GOAT conversation is really the dumbest conversation in the world. Bill Belichick is going into the season was 44-57, 13 games below 500 without Brady. They were terrible this year. Brady takes
Tampa Bay. They would have been good with Brady on that team?
Doesn't matter. What has Brady done? Brady won the divorce. Brady's having a supermodel. He got a car and a brand new house. And Bill Belichick, for all intents and purposes, is living in a trailer home. The divorce.
His whole team opted out, Ma.
Because
and Brady went to the most stacked team in football.
You can't breathe on Brady without getting a flag thrown at you.
Oh,
Literally.
stop it.
I'm not saying
they've literally changed rules for the man.
Yeah,
Okay, let's move on because we're never going to agree.
Joe
Let's move on.
Montana is the greatest of all time.
So Robert Saleh, the Jets hired him. I wanted them to get behind me. Jared, what do you like about this guy? Or do you think he'll do a good job? And what is San Francisco going to miss him?
Oh, we're definitely going to miss him. I mean, the dude's a leader. He's fired. If you ever watch a Niner game, I mean, he's probably the only coordinator that gets more airtime than the head coach. He's constantly the camera loves the guy because he's intense. He's super smart. All those guys that they have that little family of football with them. Shanahan, LaFleur, all those guys. They're all like best friends. So you're obviously going to get a smart guy, and I think that he demands a lot of respect, and a lot of his players, they want to play for him. So I think he's going to get to the Jets and change the culture immediately.
What I liked is a lot of free agents, a lot of people, even offensive-minded people like Deshaun Watson, they're like, I love this guy. Rico, we're in the minority here. We're in the minority.
Because he's not.
And he did lose to Foles. Foles did it with the Bears this year. Remember Brady didn't shake his hand after the game?
Yeah. He's a little baby. He's the queen of the Karens. That's what I always tell you.
He's a bigger diva than his wife.
I hate Brady, but I appreciate. I was a Knicks fan. I hated Michael Jordan, but I appreciated how great he was.
They're not the same level.
I hate Brady,
but
you can't argue with the proof. I mean,
yes, you can.
So
If I
needed everything?
one drive to win a game, the championship, I would take Joe Montana twice every day of the
Hell
week.
yeah. I would take 5 quarterbacks before Tom Brady. He's never done it.
I'm not saying he's not good. He is. I would take Joe Montana. Joe Cool? any day.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Let's move. This is all right. So walk us through what the Rams need to do this offseason. Do we have a featured running back? Are they going to go after a linebacker in the draft? Free agency? Did you like their young running back and the way he came about? What do the Rams need to do this offseason? Because that division is going to be very good next year.
Well, the first thing they need to do is figure out what the hell they're going to do about the salary cap. Because as of now, they're projected to be $32 million over the cap. That's scary. And they have 17 free agents this year. So everyone was talking, oh, we got Matthew Stafford, get him in that offense with the defense we got. We're losing players on the defense. John Johnson, gone. He's already said, I know my worth. He played himself out of LA, rightfully so. He said he's going to get paid. Leonard Floyd was a reclamation project. Everyone thought he was a bust in Chicago. Look what he's done. He's going to be gone. We need to upgrade the linebackers. How they're going to do it, I don't know. They're going to have to restructure some contracts. Get Aaron Donald to restructure, get Jalen Ramsey to restructure, get some other players. They're going to let some players walk to try to get under that salary cap. That's number one, because they have to be under the cap by March 17th. So that's the scary thing. Snead is a genius when it comes to the salary cap. So I know he'll get done what needs to be done. They'll get some free agents. They're going to get fringe players, guys that they weren't working out elsewhere. They're going to do what they did with Leonard Floyd and Ashawn Robinson. They're going to get them, get them on the cheap. It's going to be a low risk, high reward type of contract. And they'll find some, since we don't have another first round pick, they will find a gem in the middle to late rounds in the draft. They always do.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, no, they do. They've done a good, really good job of that. All right, Jared, I'm just going to call them out. You said this guy was a genius. He's 6-10, 4-12, 13-3, 6-10, 29-35. Kyle Shanahan. How is he a genius?
Well, he's a genius because all those numbers you just named. 3 of those 4 seasons, he's had a quarterback miss 10+ games. No other coach in the NFL has had to endure that. I don't care who you are. If your starting quarterback is going to be hurt 10+ games in the season, or you're going to be playing second and third string guys, you're not going to win, especially in the most competitive division in football. It was amazing. A miracle that we even won 6 games this year. I thought, who else would have done that? This guy was literally out there with third string quarterbacks, third string running backs. I mean, we had the most injured team in the history of the NFL. We won't even go that far. We all know that. So I think he's still a great coach. I think people still want to play for him, and I think he'll prove it. It's only he's got time to prove it.
The most competitive division. I think the AFC.
All right, Rico, answer this question for me. Out of the 3 assistants that were in Washington, Matt LaFleur in Green Bay, Sean McVay in LA, or Kyle Shanahan, you got to pick one. Who you picking to run your team?
Matt LaFleur, eyes closed.
By far.
Not even thinking about it. You're
not even
the other 2 guys. Whoever the other 2 were coming out of your mouth, it didn't matter because
you're kidding.
He's got 6 losses. He's got 8 losses.
He went to back-to-back NFC Championship games.
He's got Aaron Rodgers. Are you joking right now? Give Kyle Shanahan Aaron Rodgers.
That's one of 22 players.
He's 26-6. He's 20. Look at what Mike McCarthy did with Aaron Rodgers, Jared.
Give him Aaron Rodgers 16 games a season, and we're going to go 16-0. I promise you that.
George, who are you taking?
I'm going to take Sean McVay. I mean, I think they learn.
Come on, guys.
But and I'm going to say this. I'm going to take McVay because they learned from McVay. But honestly, you can't go wrong with either 3 coaches. You really can't.
Hey, Amber.
Yeah, it's known as the Shanahan coaching tree, the Shanahan offense. Nobody says the McVay offense. Nobody says the LaFleur offense.
If you really want to talk about it,
clearly he's the brain that gets this whole thing going.
It's Bill Walsh offense and Shanahan. We're talking about Mike Shanahan.
Mike Shanahan.
We tweaked it, but this is basically the Bill Walsh offense, and they're just adding their little spin to it.
Yeah, the wrinkles they put on the. I mean,
listen, Washington made a mistake. They went with Gruden, John Gruden's brother. They made a mistake. But if I'm picking one quarterback, one coach out of those guys, it's Matt LaFleur twice on Sunday. Rico, am I wrong?
You're out of your mind. You're out of your mind.
If I had to trade Tomlin for somebody, it would be for him.
You'd be the worst GM in football then. You did your whole fan base. That's it. Get him out. Put him in the bathroom.
Listen, this is the problem. Yes, LaFleur is blessed with great talent around him. But Mike McCarthy ran that offense into the ground.
It's terrible. That's not fair that you're comparing McCarthy.
You talk about it like Green Bay's the first team to ever have three elite players. I mean, there's a ton
look at Kansas City. And Andy Reid's a genius.
I mean, they had their faith in Tom Brady. I mean, whatchamacallit, Aaron Rodgers. They picked up They picked up Jordan Love, like for their number one pick, who didn't even see the field this year. You know, like
he was third string. He was third string.
It's easy to, in hindsight, to be like, well, he's the greatest. He's the greatest. He's the greatest.
Monte, just expect Aaron Rodgers to have a down year. He's dating Aaron Rodgers is going to have a down year. He's dating an actress now.
No, he's engaged. They just got engaged.
He's engaged. No, he's not good when he's
man, he's done. You saw what happened with dating Danica Patrick.
We talked about this, George. He's great when he's single.
Exactly.
All right, let's move on, George. Listen.
Do you think that Shanahan or McVay would have kicked a field goal in that championship game?
Oh, hell no.
He got thoroughly outcoached. He got thoroughly outcoached.
And you're picking this guy?
Because it's his second year in the league.
I don't care. Don't make excuses for him. If you just back him, don't now make excuses for him.
Wait. I'm not making excuses.
That was a terrible decision.
He got outcoached by Todd Bowles, who's a terrible head coach with the Jets, a great defensive coordinator. How many times – wait a minute, time out. How many times, George, has Wade Phillips taken advantage of a young head coach?
Oh, he's done it numerous times.
He got outcoached, Jared, but he's only second year in the league as a head coach.
I still think with Aaron Rodgers, you go for it. I mean, the defense, but then I look at that third down play. If Aaron Rodgers turns to the right, he can walk into the end zone.
Listen, I agree with that. It was a terrible call. He got outcoached. All right, George, USC, Clay Helton. I'm going to throw this year out. I'm going to throw it out because my Oregon Ducks won the Pac-12 in a COVID year, and they were terrible. Okay, 45-23, 1-3 in bowl games. He's getting $4.5 million. What is USC doing with this guy?
I wish I knew. Why he hasn't been fired, I don't know. He must have a tremendous buyout clause. He must be worth a ton of money. You know, he's getting players. You know, he got the number one recruit in this class to come to USC. They got the number 3 player from California out of Monte High School out here in Southern California to commit to USC. He's got the number 8 draft class. Recruiting class, and he can get him. He can't coach him. You know, he was what they needed with Sarkisian. Even though, if you ask any USC fan that I know, we wanted Coach Orgeron to stay. Everyone loved him.
Yeah, but he's going to run into problems at LSU. Watch what happens.
Yeah, but Helton was what they needed at the time after Sarkisian, but he can't get the job done. He needs to go.
Yeah, they're paying him a ton of money, and the reason why he's not getting fired is I know Oregon lost $80 million this football season. Well, so you're not going to give him a $4.5 million contract and get someone else in there.
He's got a big buyout on his contract. That's the only thing I can figure. This athletic director that we have, Bond, he's playing a slow game or a long game with this, and USC fans are getting frustrated. We're getting pissed off. We're used to competing for national championships, not just, hey, let's win the Pac-12 South, let's get to the Pac-12 championship game. That's not enough. And I know you mentioned earlier about Notre Dame fans living in the past, like the Lou Holtz era. There's a reason for that. You expect greatness. Laker fan, Dodger fan. Hell, we waited 32 years for a World Series. We keep expecting.
George, there's a difference. The Dodgers made it to the playoffs. They've been to the World Series. It's not like they've just tanked out. There's a big difference right now. Like, look, I said it before. I'm an Oregon Duck fan. I know we're top 15. We're not elite. Am I happy with it? No. But as long as my team can compete, in the last week of the season and play for a Pac-12 championship, and I can win $20 from you on a Venmo bet, that's all I care about.
You can have the $20 bet, and it's not enough for USC fans here. Just getting to the Pac-12 championship.
What do you think of this? Gus Malzahn, former Auburn coach. Did you want after him or no?
I don't know. Maybe I would have considered him. I really would have, because he is an upgrade over Coach Helton. He is an upgrade. It's just, I don't know. It's almost as bad for USC fans, for me personally, as Paul Hackett when he was a coach.
That's really bad.
That is Pat. Yeah.
Sports knowledge is mine. Literally, I'm always so impressed whenever I talk.
All right, Rico. Look, guys, we got about 5 minutes left, so we're going to get to these questions real quick. Rico, what is the major priority right now for the Pittsburgh Steelers? Is it offensive line? Is it getting a running back? Is it their defense? Okay, so what's your priority this offseason?
Offensive line. I was an offensive lineman. I know how important it is to have an offensive line. I think every team's priority should be an offensive line. But Pittsburgh,
Jared,
definitely.
What's your priority, number one priority for the 49ers?
I'd say actually our secondary. I think we have 800 free agents in the secondary, so this should be the year where we finally draft a first round corner or second round corner at least. We haven't done that in a very long time. I think they have to shore that up. I mean, if Verrett doesn't re-sign, that'll hurt my heart. I'm hoping we find a way to keep him. K'Wan Williams might not be able to make it back, so we have to get that secondary a little more shored up. But offensive line, we could always use some help there too. I think our quarterbacks made our line look worse, and I think that we do have some pieces. If we can get Trent Williams back, it's going to help anchor everything.
All right, Jared. So if I say to you, look, you have a chance to draft a quarterback in the first round, or you have a chance to draft a lockdown defensive back. What are you going with?
Well, it depends on the QB. So, I mean, I'm not sold on a couple of the QBs that might be there. I'm a little worried about, like, if they do something stupid and trade back to, like, 20 and get, like, Mac Jones, then I'm just going to rip my hair out. If someone like Zach Wilson falls to you, then, yeah. Justin Fields, yes. Trey Lance, I don't know. I think he's a couple of years away. He might have some, he's at these a little too raw to come in and actually do some things.
I think Trey Lance I think he could be a lot like Josh Allen. Like, he's very raw. He's got a super arm. I mean, we see how great Josh Allen has been. So, yes, but you're saying defensive back.
I would. If someone like Surtain fell to you, at 12, if you already have your – obviously, in a world where – I mean, maybe I'll get like a Deshaun Watson. That'd be great. Where I wouldn't have to worry about the quarterback at all. And, I would love to go 12. Give me Surtain, maybe, even J.C. Horn, one of those kind of guys. I wouldn't mind any of those bigger, faster, tougher CBs that we need in our defense to really, I think keep it all together. Personally, that's the main thing.
All right, George, who wins the Super Bowl and why?
Well, I'm going with Green. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm going with Kansas City. Green Bay. I'm actually going with Kansas City in this game. I have it 31-27. I think the key for this game is going to be the offensive tackles. If they get overwhelmed by JPP and what's his name? The other edge rushers for Tampa Bay. Barrett, then it's going to be a long day for Kansas City's offense, because that means that Tampa Bay is going to be able to do different things with their linebackers and their secondary. But if they can't get pressure from the edge, then Bowles is going to have to blitz, and we know Mahomes is the number one quarterback against the blitz. I don't think they're going to be able to get pressure on him on the edge. I don't know. I just have a feeling these tackles are going to step up. They're going to slide block to protect. They're going to chip. I think Kelsey's going to have a huge game. Kelsey's my pick today for MVP. I think he's going to go for at least 150 yards, maybe about 10 catches, 2 touchdowns. I got Kansas City 31-27 over Tampa Bay. I think it's going to be a hell of a game, but I got KC on going home with another title.
All right, George, how can we follow you on social media?
Well, I plan to be a little bit busy today on Twitter when I actually get a chance to watch the game, because I'm pretty much going to watch the first quarter on my phone, because my son's got a tryout with his baseball team, trying to get on a team to get ready for a junior Olympic tournament in the summer. Hopefully he makes it. So I'll be watching the game on the phone. Then after that, I'll be watching the game with my dad. I'll be on social media commenting. I'll be throwing messages to Rico, to you, Monte, and whoever else we get into these groups with.
All right, man.
So you see my Twitter handle right there. So I'll definitely be on that. My Instagram, it's actually the same one on Instagram at the other G Lopez.
All right, George, we'll have you on down the road, because we definitely got to talk some Lakers and NBA as well, and the Dodgers. Really appreciate taking the time.
I appreciate it. Thanks for having me on, you guys.
All right, thanks a lot, George. Great job.
Okay,
Rico, listen, he really knows his stuff about when it comes to LA sports.
Oh my God, he knows the backup, the wife's name of the backup's backup.
All right, Gary, listen, I'm gonna put. Let's just throw this out right now. Your betting man. Does San Francisco make the playoffs next year?
Yes. Yes.
Without a quarterback that you don't know who the quarterback is.
We'll figure it out. Again, there's rumblings that we're bringing, Jimmy back, but I just don't see it. It would just be silly when you can cut the guy and just save so much money on your cap and get other great players in there.
So if you had to bet money without having Jimmy G or a starting quarterback you don't know, 49ers are making the playoffs.
Yeah, that's how good Kyle Shanahan is. He can.
I mean, the guy's 25 and 37. What's his record? 29 and 35. And
he had a great year.
That's what
it was.
He's playing with corpses out there. I mean, give the guy he's literally a mortician. Give the guy a break. I mean, come on.
All right. Now, who wins this game and why? First of all, who are you rooting for?
Me?
Yeah.
I think you should know who I'm rooting for.
Okay, you can't root for Brady. Okay. All right, who wins?
Ever. I mean, I think the Bucs are going to win because Brady is going to be more controversy. Just like I told you exactly what was going to happen in the NFC Championship game. How did I tell you they were going to win? Controversial call, guaranteed to go in the Bucs' favor. I don't see that being any different in the Super Bowl. They changed rules for the guy. They bend everything for the guy. So I think the Bucs are going to win 31-28.
Wow, really?
I do. I think the Chiefs should win. They're better, but you got Tom Brady. He's the ultimate, do the group project. I'm just going to kick back, do nothing, get an A guy. The defense for them, I think, is going to win the game, if anything. They're going to.
Okay, final question. Yes or no answer. Lakers winning another championship this year?
No.
Who wins it?
Next.
Anybody but them.
All right. That's not a good answer.
And
I think, I don't know.
Going into the Brooklyn Nets with those three guys.
I don't know, man. The playoffs is going to be weird because you're going to have to play a little defense.
Yeah, they don't. Listen, Kyrie Irving and James Harden don't defend at all.
It's like complete Rumble and Olay. Like, here you go.
All right, Jared, love having you on. We'll get you on down the road. Have a good Super Bowl, man. Really appreciate you taking the time out. Jared Milligan does a good job. Although his hatred for Brady is just unparalleled.
I know, but he still thinks they're going to win.
He thinks they're going to win. All right, Rico, you're 13-6-2. You win this week. You end the season 14-6-2. That is a great week of football. Who wins? Why? Give us a score. Do the Tampa Bay Bucks cover the 3.5 spread?
No, not at all. I am. Tampa Bay is a great team. I just think that their luck is run out. It's coming. They're going against Patrick Mahomes. Tyreek Hill is going against two backups, a cornerback and a safety. I think Tyreek Hill gets his MVP, and it's today. He gets his Super Bowl MVP. And last year, let's remember, I called the MVP, and I'll do it again. I'm thinking it's Tyreek Hill. Patrick Mahomes is going to do what Patrick Mahomes does. Everybody's talking about that they're elite offensive lineman. His name eludes me at the moment, but he's not playing. But that's still. That's even more of a reason to be worried. You're gonna give.
Are you betting this game?
What's that?
Are you betting this game?
Am I betting this game?
No,
I know you're doing 5 times this game.
No, I know you're doing prop bets, but are you betting the Kansas City Chiefs to cover?
I not only am I betting Kansas City to cover, I got boxes, I got everything. I'm all over the place, Monte. You know me as well. This is like the last hurrah. This is like you're at the poker table and the dealer just said, this is the last hand. And so you're in no matter what. So
Rico,
am I betting? Yes. Do I have
as well as I know you, it's never been the dealer who said it's the last hand for you. It was family and friends saying, Rico, you've been playing poker for 3 days. It's time to stop.
So listen to this. Just real quick, I found out about a play that I didn't know existed, and there's a bet on it. It's 100,000 to 1. Right? No. I mean, I think 10,000. It's huge. It's like 100,000 to 1. A 1 point safety. Do you know what a 1 point safety is?
I don't, and I know all the NFL rules.
Me too. I thought so, and I had to look it up last night. It's when a team's going for 2 points, they fumble the ball.
Oh, and they
picks up the ball and goes back in the end zone and gets tackled. That's a 1 point safety.
Yes, because it's like the extra point. It's only 1. They don't give you 2. They give you 1. Yes, I know.
But I got to tell you, like 100,000 to 1 odds that's going to happen. It's never happened in NFL.
Never happened. Joseph, I love the Sixers this year. I have Joel Embiid as my MVP, but I think they don't have enough to get to the finals. But I agree with you. The Sixers are a team to be reckoned with. All right, Rico, it's time for you. First of all, where are you watching the game and who are you watching the game with?
I'm going to be home, and Levi's coming for the first half, and then he's got to go. He's going to somebody else's place, but I'll be home. It's COVID.
In other words,
second half. I'm going to be with me, Melissa, and the kid.
In other words, Levi's going to a better party in the second half.
It's just going to be me, Melissa, and the kid, so probably.
All right, Rico, this is our favorite part of the show where it's Rico's rant. We never know what Rico's going to talk about. Close us out.
Well, this one has been bothering me. It's driving me crazy that there's in the NFL on every year we get so used to the commercials, seeing these staples of your Spuds McKenzie and your soft drinks. I didn't want to say their names because I'm so annoyed that they're not. They've decided to not do commercials this year. These big companies, these 2 or 3 big companies that do them every year, that are literally part of the game, a part of the Super Bowl. Like just what I need, another year, another thing to remind me that the world's a little out of whack. Like I can't sit down for 4 hours and watch and see my commercials. They're like, what was their PR firm, their public relations firm, went out of their way to put a big push on both companies that no commercial is the new commercial. Blah, blah, blah. That's why I didn't want to say their name. But one's a beer company, one's a soft drink company. And for the last 30 years, they've been doing commercials on it. They've had gimmicks. They've had dogs. They've had everything. They've had halftime shows that they've sponsored. And now this year, they just want to remind us again why everything's a little out of whack when I can't just get 4 hours to where I forget the world is where we're at right now. And that is literally driving me nuts. And I'm so angry about it that I want to say, go F them. And if I drank, you know what? I ain't touching another soft drink that starts with a P. And you know what? I'm glad I don't drink because I wouldn't drink that light garbage that they sell anyway. Wow. So that's where I'm at. I'm very happy to have been, to do the football. I'm excited that everybody's getting to watch the Super Bowl, despite those. Anyway, that's where I'm at with those. Little aggravated.
Wow.
What? What are you doing?
Listen, I get it. I don't know why they're doing it. You know why they're doing it. They're doing it because there's not going to be a large number. Here's what I'm going to say. Normally, the ratings are a little skewed or off because 15, 12 people watch one television. But now you're going to have 4 people watching, 3 people watching, 2 people watching. So there's going to be more viewers. So they should actually really want to have more those commercials there because more TVs will be on.
Yeah, no, I mean, the numbers of people, the Nielsen ratings are going to be way through the roof. But you're right. The number of people watching, the TVs that are going to be watching are more, but it's going to be about the same amount of people. But whatever, 30 million people. I mean, the Super Bowl, nothing is it's the most watched show every year.
Every year. Every year
breaks every year. I hate that company. You know what? I'm glad. If I drank, I would quit drinking just because of them.
Listen, people really love your rant. People are loving your best rant of the year.
Yeah.
Listen, Rico, you closed the show like the champion you are. We're taking off next week. We'll get you on again. We'll figure out what we're going to do. Your strength is the NFL. Obviously, this is the offseason, but we always have a ton to talk about. Enjoy the game. I will be calling you to see what type of prop bets I'm going to do, and I really appreciate you taking the time out.
I love you, brother, and I'll see you. I'll talk to you in a little bit.
All right, thanks. That was Rico.
By the way, I love Ariana. I only bet a little bit on football and prop bets. Prop bet, you're a pro, babe.
Because I just found out about prop bets.
Yeah.
All right, Rico. Oh, Rico's so funny. All right. Anyway, I'm going to do my quick little close here. We call it the extra point. And I just want people to understand something, okay? Conservatives are being kicked off of their televisions, their radios. Their show is getting canceled. Lou Dobbs is fired from Fox after being sued for $2.7 billion by a voting machine company. Now, my friend from high school and people who are not conservatives are like, this is censorship. this is censorship. No, it is not censorship. My friend is worried that the government now is going to stop people from speaking out. He said this is stopping dissent. And let me just give you a quick example of why people are so misguided about this. There's a difference between dissent, free speech, and propaganda. And I'm going to give you a 1-minute example of this. Okay, I'm a Packer fan. So at the start of the season this year, I started telling people, this is false, but I'm just saying, if I started telling people that Tom Brady is an alien, Tom Brady should not be allowed to play in the NFL because he has superior DNA that aliens injected into him. That's why he always wins. I go to court and I say that Tom Brady needs to stop banned from the NFL because he has superior genes. It's not fair to human beings. The judge asked my lawyers, does Monte Perez, the sports whisperer, have any proof that Tom Brady is in fact an alien? My judges say no, Your Honor. And then that night, the judge throws the court case out. I go on this show and I say Tom Brady's an alien. Now, the NFC Championship game is played. We go back to court 4, 5, 6. We go back to court 65 times. So we don't want Tom Brady playing in the NFC Championship game because we are Packer fans and we don't want to play against aliens. The Tampa Bay Bucks win. I get all the Green Bay Packer fans to storm Tom Brady's locker room, the Tampa Bay locker room, because he's an alien and he has an unfair advantage. Now, when I do this, 100 police officers are injured, 2 police officers die, and 2 police officers commit suicide because they were Packer fans and they let the mob in believing the lie that Tom Brady's an alien. Here is what's happening, people. Rudy Giuliani, Trump's attorney, went to court over 15 times. The judge asked him, Mr. Giuliani, do you have proof that the election was stolen? Do you have proof that these machines were rigged? And Rudy Giuliani 15 times said, no, Your Honor, we have no proof. Then he went on Sean Hannity. Then he went on Fox News and he said the election was stolen because in America, you can't lie in court because you'll be held in contempt. But you could go on TV and lie. And that's what Rudy Giuliani did. That's what Lou Dobbs did. That's why all these people stormed the Capitol. And by the way, they are now finding out that a third of the people who stormed the Capitol didn't even vote. Lou Dobbs, Rudy Giuliani, Fox News, they need to be held accountable for these lies. In America, we have libel, we have slander, we have lawsuits that you have to speak the truth. If you lie about someone, you could be held accountable. And that's what's happening. That is what happened. This is not stopping dissent, okay? Dissent is what's happening right now with Navalny in Russia. He's trying to kick Vladimir Putin out, the corrupt dictator. And people are dissenting because Vladimir Putin is a dictator. He's a liar. There is no proof in court that the election was stolen, but these guys went on TV and lied, just like I would have done if I said Tom Brady was a lie. They incited violence. They incited a mob. It is freedom of speech. You could say whatever you want. It's not censorship. It's being accountable for your lies when you knew the truth. It is a dereliction of duty. The primary job of the media is to hold the government accountable. And these people for months have lied that have led to deaths of 4 police officers and 100 police officers injured. So don't tell me freedom of speech is being under attack. I can say whatever I want on this show. I can spew racist stuff, anti-women, anti-LGBT community stuff. And I have to be held responsible for that. But when you speak lies, that is not censorship. That is calling them out and holding them accountable for the big lie. And that is my extra point. I want to thank all the guests today. We had such a fun show with Anna Lewis, with Chris Rosaglu, the Nuts and Bolts Sports Crew, Ariana Prasad. We had Jeff Barnes. We had Keith Richards. We had Jared Milligan. We had George Lopez. And, of course, we had Rico, Show Me the Money Graziano. I will be off next week. We will be back in 2 weeks talking NBA, talking NFL, talking sports with great guests as always. And I want to thank every one of you for making this show trend at number 3. If you like this show, tell your friends, tell a family member. We want to be trending number 1 so we could do this 5 days a week. And in the immortal words of Arnold Schwarzenegger, I'll be back.